Company 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from First Horizon Park, the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. Sounds tonight on a throwback Thursday, taking on the Charlotte Knights. And that first pitch, 6:35 right here. They have also got Home Run Derby X coming, I believe it's in August. I got all the details in my email somewhere. But Nick Swisher, Ian, former World Series champion, going to stop by at some point today, so we're excited about that. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So we got TD in an hour. He will recap today's Titans practice. I did not make it out to practice, but I did listen to the press conferences after practice. You know, Brian Callahan did not talk yesterday. I was a little surprised by that. Not sure I'm totally in love with the head coach not talking to the media the day after the first practice, but it is what it is. And I was listening to Brian Callahan. Now, let me say this. Brian Callahan, and I don't know him very well, but I mean, I know him probably better than most of you. Brian Callahan's a good guy. And this is always what happens when you have kind of a hard-ass coach, is you replace him with a warm, fuzzy coach. And then when you fire the warm, fuzzy coach, it's like, well, we had a lack of discipline, or the players weren't tough enough, or whatever. And then all of a sudden you go out and you go get a hard-ass coach. So I don't get too caught up in all of that, but he is a good dude. And I do appreciate that, you know, from him as a coach. But that's not really what I like about Brian Callahan. What I like about Brian Callahan is that he is the guru coach. When the Titans fired the hard-ass coach they had in Mike Vrabel, all I begged for was to hire the guru coach. Now, some of you may not listen every day, and thus some of you may not know what the guru coach is. But the guru coach is the new wave in the NFL. It's the offensive coordinators that come from a head coach who runs the offense and essentially farms out the defense. When Green Bay Packer fans are mad about the defense, it used to be coordinator Joe Barry they were mad at, they just get mad at the coordinator. They don't even think about the head coach because they know he has nothing to do with the defense. Sean McVay has always farmed out that side of the ball to Wade Phillips and Brandon Staley and Raheem Morris, and that's always been what he's done. The two heads of the guru coaching tree in this era are Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. Now, if you want to get more technical, it goes all the way back to Mike Shanahan, but let's stick with this century. So we've got Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, and their offspring includes AFC Championship coach Zach Taylor, perennial playoff contender Matt LaFleur, the Tua Tagovailoa rescuer Mike McDaniel, Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, etc. Ian, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody that's on the list that's pretty good, but
Sure.
That, again, throw them all in there. Now, when the Titans, again, all I asked for was a guru coach. That's it. My first choice was Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. He comes from Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, but I was fine with Brian Callahan. What I would not have been okay with is Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald, Aaron Glenn, Bill Belichick. I would not have, no defense. And I yelled and I screamed about it. And here's why. Because guru coaches, for the most part, develop or enhance the quarterback. Jared Goff in LA with Sean McVay, Brock Purdy in San Francisco with Shanahan, Jordan Love in Green Bay with LaFleur. I mean, Tua, and you guys know I can't stand Tua. Tua's going to get $50 million plus per year with Mike McDaniel as his head coach. Before Mike McDaniel got there, the owner got suspended because he was trying to scheme a way of getting Tua out of there. That's how crazy it is. And regardless of whether or not I could coach Joe Burrow and be good, Zach Taylor has coached Joe Burrow and been good. And as we all know, it's Brian Callahan's job to develop Will Levis. So today at the podium, I'm listening to Brian. Lads, at least that's not what I think it is. Brian Callahan has never lied to me. At least I don't think he's lied to me. He has not been caught lying to me yet. If Brian Callahan had a history of not telling the truth, then I probably wouldn't get excited about what he had to say about Will Levis. But as of right now, what I know about Brian Callahan is straight shooter. He's never lied to me. He's a guru coach. I believe in the guru coach philosophy. It's all I wanted for Christmas. And here's what he said so far about your young quarterback today at training camp.
He's been really impressive. I think his hard work this offseason and over the summer has really paid off. He's incredibly confident right now, and he's earned that confidence. And every day that he comes out and plays well, he earns more confidence. And I think that that's the fun part about where he's at. He's dialed in. He has studied. You can just tell he's ready for what's ahead. And I think I told him yesterday, if he keeps stacking days like he had yesterday and today, he's gonna play pretty good football. And it's a day by day process, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But I've been really pleased with where he's at.
Ian, that sounds pretty good, right?
Not bad at all.
So, I mean, here's the guru who, again, has never lied to me. If he's just blowing smoke and just telling me, hey, I'm so excited, I'm so impressed with him through 2 days. I told him, if you keep doing this every day, you're going to be that guy in the NFL. And if he says that this year, Will Levis stinks, and then next year they draft the quarterback, and he's saying the exact same things about Shedeur Sanders, well, then I'm not going to take that seriously. But he hasn't lied to me yet. He hasn't given me a sense for me not to believe him. So when I hear that, I get excited because I'm like, this is why you hired the guru. Because the guru knows. I know we live in the United States if everybody knows how to do everybody's job better than everybody else. I know I get it on Twitter all the time. They should let me host the show. I think there have been about 6 cracks on this radio station, if I am correct. 6 tries at an afternoon drive show on this program. Might have been 5, 4, something like that. Afternoon drive programs on this station with some really successful people. Guess what? This is the one that got to number 1. I know. You think because your podcast, you think you can do that. I know. A guru coach to me is a quarterback expert. And it really, when I think about it, it all kind of revolves around Bill Walsh, the ultimate great quarterback guru. May he rest in peace. So I am excited that my team has a guru coach who, again, he knows quarterback play. Mike Vrabel did not know quarterback play, did not know offense. And that's why with him an offensive coordinator, it was just throwing darts at the wall. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know offensive line coach. It was just, hey, hopefully he gets a good coach. Throw it right at the wall. No, Arthur Smith, he only hired Arthur Smith to be offensive coordinator because Matt LaFleur wanted to take him to Green Bay. So Vrabel didn't know. Vrabel didn't know how to develop a quarterback. He didn't know what it took. He saw Brady on the other side, but he didn't develop Brady. This guy is a guru. And when the guru, who again is an expert, is just brimming with excitement about the young quarterback, that as a fan gets me excited about the young quarterback. I think about Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a lot of things. He's a former number 1 draft choice. He's a Pro Bowler. He's an NFC champion. He's 60-50-1 as a starter. He's going to make over $400 million in his career. And yet, do any of us think that Jared Goff is a superstar? I don't think he's a superstar. But with Sean McVay coaching him, or Ben Johnson, who is a guru offensive coordinator for the Lions, with those guys coaching him, he plays at another level. That's the point of the guru coach. The guru coach knows. I'm sorry, Aaron Glenn might be the greatest leader of men coach out there. I don't want him. I didn't want Mike McDonald. I didn't want Bill Belichick in his 6 Super Bowls. I didn't want, because a defensive coach can get lucky in today's game and hit a home run with Arthur Smith. But then that guy leaves. And the defensive coach has to put the pieces together and put the puzzle back. Bill Belichick didn't win anything before Tom Brady, and he didn't win anything after Tom Brady. So when I hear the guru coach saying nothing but positive things about the young quarterback, when we know that the number 1 story of the season the number one story currently of the franchise, the thing that matters the most, and thus is the most important thing about training camp, is the young quarterback. I got to say, he's a guru, so he's got check when it comes to being an expert. He hasn't lied to me before. I think Brian Callahan, so far, and this may change, but I think he's got credibility. Check. Let the guru do what he was paid to do. And as we've seen with these other guru coaches, and I'm not sure I consider Nathaniel Hackett, who did technically come from the tree, but was already an offensive coordinator under Doug Marrone in Jacksonville before he went to go caddy for Matt LaFleur. I'm not sure I count him as a guru, but he is the one guy that failed. It seems like the gurus know how to get the best out of these quarterbacks. So let him do what he was paid to do. And it sounds like he's pretty happy with the quarterback he's got right now. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I'll hit your thoughts on that. Again, TD next hour, which we are very excited about, live from First Horizon Park. And coming up next, there was one thing Brian Callahan mentioned today when he was talking about what Will Levis has done a good job of. And I got to be completely frank with you. It actually gets me very, very excited because it's something I heard going into training camp was going to be very, very important. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. It's Stillman and Company, again, live from First Horizon Park, where the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight. And of course, kind of the big thing that we're here today to tell you about is Home Run Derby X. So they got all these great superstars. Manny Ramirez is here today. Andrew Jones is going to be a part of it. Pedro Alvarez is going to be part of it. Nick Swisher, who's going to be with us, is going to be a part of it. I told you guys that I heard the commercial, and they talked about Alex Hugo, who played at Georgia, and I'm guessing she plays professional women's softball. When she was in college, and this was when I was doing softball games, she was like the Bo Jackson of women's softball, and she will be a part of Home Run Derby X as well. So let's get excited about that. And this week's Nationals Best Deal, tickets to Home Run Derby X right here at First Horizon Park, Saturday, August 31st. That's the date. Buy 2 tickets now for only $30 and watch as MLB legends, top female players, and local Middle Tennessee hitters compete in an exciting 3-on-3 co-ed competition. Buy your tickets now at thegamenational.com/deals and be part of the Home Run Derby X excitement.
Well, playing on time, how much of that is also the chemistry with the receivers? What have you taken away from that position group first 2 days?
It all goes together, certainly. And that's that position group is really fun for me. Those guys between Hop and Tyler and Calvin, I mean, those are guys that have played a lot of football, and they understand what we're trying to do. They understand how to run routes. It's helpful that they're where they're supposed to be. And sometimes it's that simple as just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And that's how timing happens. And it's on Will to do his part, but they're in the spaces where they're supposed to be and the windows they're supposed to be. And they just got a great understanding and a great feel for how to play the position. And it's, I am excited about the young guys that are playing well too. I mean, I think Trey's done a nice job. I think some of the young players, Sam Snee and those guys have really taken a lot of coaching and done some good things. So it's going to be a fun group to watch, I think, over the course of the preseason from top to bottom.
That was Brian Callahan today talking about the timing with the receivers. And I do love the fact that he's like, hey, DeAndre and Calvin and Tyler Boyd, they've played a lot of football. Oh, yeah, don't let me forget about Traylon Burks. He's doing well, too. And then some of these other guys, whatever, sprinkle them in there a little bit. But I did hear him talk about timing. The timing, the quarterback's timing, and the ball gets snapped and he puts the ball in a place and the receiver's there at the right time. We're all aware of what timing is. It's the one thing that Malik Willis absolutely stinks at. And so timing is very, very important. And Brian Callahan was asked about, how Will Levis has done through 2 days and what's the one thing that he said. Now, granted, they have not been throwing the ball deep because he doesn't want guys pulling a hamstring on the second day of practice, which we'll see. Chidobe Awuzie is already hurt, but we'll see. We'll see if, this new philosophy leads to less than 1,200 people having to take a snap for the Titans. But he was asked about how Levis has done, and of course he's very, very positive, but he was talking about that word again, timing.
I think Will's doing a great job playing on time. Obviously we're, again, focused on a little bit more of the timing elements, the shorter passing game.
Oh, we're focused right now on the shorter passing game. Now, I think that this is really important for a couple reasons. Number one reason, and again, I trust experts. Some of you guys think you're smarter than your own doctors. You're not. So I trust experts when it comes to hey, what should this really be? And I did the show with the GM long enough to know that I'm not an expert. So we had Trevor on the show on Tuesday, an expert who, again, when people got mad about his Traylon Burks take, we went through his resume, the fact that the guy played in the NFL for 15 years. He was a number one draft choice. He's been doing college football for ESPN for 20 years, called games on CBS, and I'm talking about NFL games on Sundays on CBS. So I think he has a pretty good resume. And I asked Trevor, I said, okay, Trevor, early in training camp, what can we actually see from Will Levis that will matter that we can have an opinion on? Here's what Trevor said.
What I'm expecting is timing. I want to see him throw the ball on time. And so if he makes plays because he drops back and he doesn't like what he sees and he hesitates a while and then he starts to run around and then throws the ball down the field and scores a touchdown, I don't care about that at all. What I want to see is drop, set, throw.
Bang. Trevor said on Tuesday. So before we practiced on Wednesday, before practice on Thursday, Trevor on Tuesday, he sat there and said, the thing I care about is timing. And what is it Brian Callahan says he's happy Will Levis is doing? Timing. What is it that they're really focused on early? And again, I think some of this is injury prevention. It's timing. And so far, the guru coach says he's doing a good job. And if it's the guru, and if the guru coach says it, again, he's never lied to me. At least I haven't, found that he's lied to me. That gives me a lot of optimism. And here's the other thing that makes timing so important in the quick game. Like, obviously, the reason why they're not having Calvin Ridley, and I know TD was texting me yesterday. He's like, no, they don't put safeties. They're not worried about him as a deep threat. Joe was saying on Jervis Joe that he's not the deep threat. Let me say this. He better be the deep threat. Because if he's not the deep threat, then they wasted money. So I'm expecting him to be the deep threat. I'm expecting him to go long and catch the ball. Now, more important, when it comes to what they're doing here as far as the quick game and that stuff's concerned, they know as a coaching staff, they have to do things to help out their offensive line. And Brian Callahan said it when he took the job. He said it before he even hired his father, who is a guru on the offensive line. He said that before we even knew, or they say they didn't know Bill Callahan was a part of the deal. I have a hard time believing that. I mean, especially knowing that it's like, hey, our son is going to get one shot at this, and I'm the best offensive line coach in the league, and the offensive line that he's going to is a train wreck, but I'm going to stay over here in Cleveland. I have a hard time believing that that wasn't part of the plan, but again, different discussion for a different day, and I don't know it to not be true. So, again, he said, we have to do things to help the quarterback out. It's not just the offensive line. We can get the ball out of his hands faster. Well, if you're going to do that, you better be on time. Because if you aren't in sync with a wide receiver and you're throwing the ball deep, what normally happens? You throw the ball 8 yards out of bounds. You throw the ball 5 yards ahead of the guy. You know, again, it's incomplete. When you throw the ball deep and you miss, most of the time it's incomplete. Ian, what do you think happens when you throw the ball short, you're not on time, and you miss? Again, you're incomplete when you throw it deep. What happens when you throw it short?
Maybe picked.
Interceptions. Ball's tipped, ball's up in the air, ball's right at the linebacker, ball's a collision, and the ball's behind it. DB's trailing, he intercepts it. It's like pitching in baseball. You make a mistake on the outside, it's probably ball 2. You make a mistake on the inside, and see this apartment complex that they're building behind the left field wall out here at First Horizon Park? It may hit one of those windows. That's just how it works. So when I hear the, hey, how's Will Levis done so far? Will's done well. Obviously, I haven't thrown the ball deep, but in what we have done, we've worked on timing, and so far it's been good. When I've got Trevor saying, hey, the thing I need to see is, are the throws going to be on time? That gets me excited. And I came into training camp, and again, I'm not getting carried away. Like, I'm not saying he is now a franchise quarterback because the coach said he was throwing with timing. I'm not doing that. But it does sound like a positive development. Now we'll see if Brian Callahan's always that way, and it's just always good. But quite frankly, I got to be honest. That's what Trevor said he was looking for. And then I hear the coach come out right away and say that's what he's doing. Sounds like he's on schedule. I'd be shocked if Will Levis has one of those out of nowhere second-year campaigns, the way Carson Wentz did his second year in Philly, the way Patrick Mahomes did his second year in Kansas City, Lamar his second year when he was the unanimous MVP in Baltimore. So I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself, but I've said this for months now when asked about Levis. Like, I'm right there in the middle. I can see this going either way. So the baby steps right now, at least according to the coach, they seem good. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will get to some of your phones on this, 615-737-1025. And I will ask TD when he shows up at 3 o'clock if Levis looked as good today as it sounds like the coach is making it out to be. Coming up next, there's already, and I hate this, already an issue that the Titans are trying to avoid. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, again, live at First Horizon Park, where the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight, right on 94.9 The Fan. And first pitch is 6:35. So come on out. Great seats available for a Throwback Thursday here at First Horizon Park. And, of course, Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Caldwell Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
couple things just to start. Made a couple of roster transactions today. Signed Corey Levin, center. Signed Shane Ray, outside linebacker. 2 additions for us here in camp. We released Dylan, the running back from Washington. So it's a kind of we had one more spot. We had to make room for the other. So that's today's transactions. Injury-wise, Harold Landry is still out. He's been sick, so it's just an illness. We'll have to work him back in as he gets healthy. You know, anybody who's been sick for a while knows he can't come out that quickly. So he'll be working back. And then Cheeto's going to be out for he's going to miss some time with a calf injury. So it'll be a couple of weeks probably, just so you see what he's out here, but he's not practicing.
That was Brian Callahan today. Again, I don't care about Corey Levin. No disrespect to the running back from Washington. I don't care about him either. And Harold Landry being sick, that's fine, whatever. Chidobe Awuzie is already hurt with a calf strain, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, says the coach. Doing what? And the thing that bothers me about this more than anything is he's the corner that I wasn't worried about getting hurt. Now, I am always reminded of what the GM used to say when it came to corners. And what he used to say was, you can never have too many corners. So when we just look on paper and say Snead, Awuzie, McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee in the 5th round, like that's good enough. When we do that, the thing I keep hearing in my head is you can never have too many corners. And so on the first day, there was maybe a kind of a discussion before I guess anybody knew that Awuzie was hurt, but there was a discussion about, hey, have you noticed that Jamal Adams is lined up? Well, I don't even know if I can say it, but that they've talked about Jamal Adams being a utility player, and that means they play some linebacker, play some safety, play some nickel. I don't know. And it's like, well, would you take McCreary off the field to put Jamal Adams on the field? And it's like, I don't think it's taking McCreary off the field to put Jamal Adams on the field. I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like it's probably more along the lines of they're going to put McCreary outside because Awuzie's out for a couple of weeks. Now, maybe it's great practice. Maybe he heals up that calf and it'll be fine and we don't have anything to worry about and it'll be okay and on you go. But I got in the car today and I heard D. Mace talking about how worried he was about Awuzie and his calf. And this is D. Mace who told us don't worry about L'Jarius Sneed and L'Jarius Sneed's knees. And so I heard that news today that Awuzie is already hurt. And I'm like, oh, God, from what? From what? What's he hurt from? And then it's going to be a couple of weeks. Now, the Titans media is all giddy because the coach finally told them what everybody, that Awuzie is hurt. And I even saw somebody tag Vrabel in a tweet and said, see, it's not that hard after all. The one thing I would say is I see both sides. Like, I think that sometimes being quiet about things does a disservice to the player. And in the case of Bud Dupree at one point, Vrabel wouldn't say anything. And then Bud just came out and said, hey, I'm hurt. That's why. And everyone's like, oh, okay. He says he's hurt. And so it makes some sense. I remember Rashaan Evans' rookie year. It was a big mystery as to what was wrong with Rashaan Evans. I remember with Adoree Jackson in 2020 when he was hurt the whole time. Well, what's wrong with it? And then it leads to speculation and people get upset. And, Vrabel is such a piss pants about everything that he just crosses arms. But I also remember, speaking to the GM again, him telling me a story that when the injuries were really bad with Jeff Fisher coaching the team back in the day, that Jeff Fisher would get up there and he would start the press conference by listing off all the guys that were hurt. And he, talking about Floyd, felt like that was just making excuses. And so I see both sides of it. So I'm not going to just completely say, oh, see, Vrabel, it's so much better without you. But I did find it at least a little fascinating that, hey, now we know what's wrong with Awuzie. We know where he is. We know how long it'll be. Oh. Which probably beats speculating. It's just, not good. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Who else going to kick us off today? Adam in Portland is going to kick us off. Adam, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
So you've been paying attention to it. This is my question. I never have questions for you anymore, but I actually have one. Are you seeing them do anything? I mean, it's probably day two. You're not going to see a lot, but are they doing anything like protection-wise different to make up for, their inefficiencies or staffing on that right side? Are they putting two running backs on the field, extra tight ends, anything that you noticed offhand?
Well, first of all, I wasn't there today, but even if I was, I couldn't answer your question. Those are the things that you're not allowed to talk about. That are, the scheme-related type stuff is the stuff that is a no-no as far as talking about. So I couldn't even tell you, even if it was. I do wonder what TD thinks when he shows up at 3 o'clock about maybe what it looks like differently with Bill Callahan there than it has in the past. I mean, I've told you about the drills that they do that I see drills in individual period that Bill Callahan's putting guys through. And I saw in OTAs and the different equipment, and I'm like, this is practical stuff. Whereas before, they just ran to one side of the field and they had a bunch of pads, like the same pads that we would, simulate contact with in basketball. Somebody go up for a layup and you'd hit them with the pad in order to simulate the contact in a game. And they just hit each other with the pads and just say turbo all the time. And Bill Callahan's not doing that. Now, as far as like the scheme and what they're going to do on the right side of the line, I couldn't tell you that even if I saw it. So far, I haven't. And they haven't even put the pads on yet. So pass protection and things like that, well, you can't really do pass protection until you can thud each other. So there's probably not an answer for you there that you're going to like. The second part about this is, as far as, the offensive line on the right side, the one thing I can tell you about the right side right now, yesterday, Sadiq Charles threw up all over the field like 4 times. And John Ojukwu at right tackle has 66 snaps in his career, and that makes me a little nervous. And Trevor has just shrugged his shoulders and said that he does not think the right tackle is on the roster, that he thinks they're going to go get another right tackle somewhere else, and maybe he's right. Which, by the way, it would be nice if Nicholas Petit-Frere, speaking of injuries, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
It'd be nice if PT would get back in there at some point. Justin says, I really think the reason why they're working on the short game is because Levis has a few new receivers and he needs to work on timing with those receivers. Plus, working on the short game can help with the timing on deep passes. I do not think that has anything to do with it. I mean, I think they're telling the truth. I think they're being legitimately honest when they say that the reason that they are working on the short game early on is because they want to slowly work people in before they start throwing the ball deep. Now, whether or not that's going to be the difference between, them scoring touchdowns and them being injured and not injured or whatever, that I have no idea. We'll see. But that's kind of the philosophy with which they are going. So that doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is the idea that, this is going to help the deep game. I'm not worried about the deep game. As long as they can run deep, I'm not worried about it. Because Levis, we know he can throw the hell out of the ball down the field. So that doesn't seem to bother me. One texter says, Daniel says, do you think signing Corey Levin means they want Daniel Brunskill to compete for a starting job on the right side? Say right tackle, says Daniel in Mexico. Here's what I will say to the backup center thing. So yesterday, there was a snap. They have not had a backup center the whole time. And Bill Callahan said at the end of OTAs that, he's just trying to find somebody that can do it. And they've got to get the reps in there and things like that. And yesterday, Malik Willis took a shotgun snap, and it was a horrendous. It was like a Daniel Munyer snap. And Malik just picked it up and ran like 10 yards off the side, which is actually a very good job by Malik. But I'm like, if you can't snap on the first day, then you got to get somebody in there that can snap. And so I actually think it has more to do with the idea of getting somebody in there to snap. I hate to say it because everybody wants to believe in, everybody wants to believe like that they've got a shot to make the team when it comes to training camp. That's why I don't really watch that training camp version of Hard Knocks. The offseason Hard Knocks about the Giants has actually been very entertaining. And I think that this Joe Shane, who's the general manager of the Giants, I think he's a freaking moron. But I find that to be entertaining. I find the training camp kind of to be the same. They follow the first round pick around. They follow around a couple of Scarbinis from Scarbini State that are trying to make the team, and they show them calling their girlfriend, and they got 2 reps in practice, and they got yelled at by the coach, and they follow the star player around, and like that's pretty much it. Everybody thinks they're going to make the team when they're on that 90-man roster. Sometimes you're on a 90-man roster because, hey, we need a second center to snap the ball. And that may be why I think they brought Levin back in, more so than anything to do with where Brunskill may or may not play. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, coming up next, there is a player. We talked about Levin. There's another player they added to the roster. And I actually like it. And the guy hasn't played a snap of real football in 6 years. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
What did you see in Shane Ray that you liked when he was here on his minicamp tryout?
Yeah, he did a nice job. He was in shape. I know Shane's played quite a bit of football. I actually was in Denver when Shane was drafted. Just turns out that way. So I've known Shane for a long time, and he came in, he performed well, and I think it's always impressive when veterans like him that have played enough football come into a minicamp tryout and practice their ass off, and play hard and do all those things because they love playing football. And so excited to get Shane here. We needed some guys to rotate in there and at the outside linebacker spot and compete. So, guy played a little bit of football in the league, and I think he can help us.
That was Brian Callahan today talking about the addition of Shane Ray. And what's crazy about this, Ian, is I actually thought about Shane Ray like yesterday.
Really?
Because I remember, he came in for the rookie minicamp. I didn't even know that he was out there. When the rookie minicamp, it was just that one day, and I was looking at Latham and Sweat. And so I forget who it was, and was like, hey, that's Shane Ray out there. I'm like, Shane Ray? Like from 8 years ago? I was like, yeah. Okay. Because the NFL is actually allows for rookie minicamp guys to come in on kind of a tryout basis. I think Jarvis Landry went on a tryout basis somewhere in a rookie minicamp, and I think it's great. So the Titans signed Shane Ray today, and I saw that, and I was like, you know what? I like the move. Now, he was on Buffalo's roster last year. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about, but he was on Buffalo's roster. But more importantly, what I like about the move, even though the guy has not played real football in 6 years, is it's twofold. Number one, when Brian Callahan says, hey, he came into the rookie minicamp, he worked his ass off, and we want that, like they made him earn, right? This wasn't just like let's sign him and see and go from there. And I know, like, he came into the rookie minicamp, and then they kept in touch clearly throughout the summer. And then when they felt like they had a need or a spot or whatever, they brought him in. So that's the first thing. If the guy's not going to quit after not playing a down of meaningful football in 6 years, then there's got to be something relentless to him. And motor is a big thing when it comes to pass rush. But the second reason that I really like the addition of Shane Ray is because this is something that I feel like the previous administration would never have done. This is a move they would not have made because it reminds me of 2020. The number one thing that I'm scared about the most when it comes to defense for the Titans is the pass rush. That I remember 2020, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry were on that team. They had to play pretty much every snap because there was nobody else there. They signed Clowney and Beasley, and it didn't work, and there was no real backup plan. There was Derek Roberson. There was some guy named Wyatt Ray. I mean, every game, it was a nightmare, and they just could not get to the quarterback. And so going into that season on paper, just like on paper right now, it looks good at corner with three guys. They had Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, and Christian Fulton. So it looked good on paper that they could have guys in the secondary. But it didn't matter because they couldn't get to the quarterback at all. And that's the worst pass rush I've seen out of the Titans since the 2009 season when Hainsworth left and Van den Bosch got hurt. So Simmons is still here and Landry is still here, but Nico Autry's 11 and a half sacks have walked out the building. And I don't know where they're going to replace that. And it's not going to be one guy. There's not one guy who's going to add 11 and a half sacks this season. Devondre Sweat, even if it pans out, is not going to add 11 and a half sacks himself. Although if he did, it'd be nice. But I think about Shane Ray, and I'm like, hey, this guy actually has rushed the passer before in the NFL. And clearly, they saw enough in the rookie minicamp to say he's still got some juice to rush the passer. That is exactly what, just keep running through them. I am not a believer that practice squad guys are going to get you to the promised land. And I'm not convinced that unless Sweat does hit right away, that they will effectively be able to replace Autry. I'm not doing this whole, like, let's go through all these practice squad guys and say, okay, this guy, this guy, this guy. I'm not doing that. But if you can just get a little here, and you just get a little there, you got a shot. And I have long since believed that pass rush is the single most important thing for any defense and that you can have average corners. If you've got a good pass rush, you can send them to the Pro Bowl like the 2008 Titans. And if you've got good corners but no pass rush, it doesn't matter. So if they want to bring him in today and then cycle somebody else out and then bring somebody else in, and if they want to do that, I'm here for it. Because Arden Key is not a real true sacker in the NFL. He's probably more of a third down, comes in the game, goes after the quarterback, and gets you 6 sacks a season like he did last. That's probably his game. Takes advantage of bad tackles like Trevor Penning and Andre Dillard. One texter into the text line sent one text in lowercase and one text in all caps. The first case, why do I keep getting the first text in lowercase? JS, stop thinking Levis is the guy. He's trash. The second text, all caps, 3 minutes later, JS, stop thinking and hoping, HOPEING, stop thinking and hoping that Levis is the guy. He is trash. I don't know that. I mean, I think we all know, like, terrible quarterback. You know, like, I think we all know, like, when we, and I hate, throwing people under the bus, but, like, I remember when Matt Mock played quarterback for the Titans. Like, I know what bad quarterback is. I know what that was it Connor Cook? Was that his name? The kid that started that playoff game for the Raiders? Because Matt McGloin and Derek Carr got hurt, and he was just, we know what that looks like. Levis is not that. I know that. Now, will Levis have a career where he's got this cannon of an arm and he can throw for a bazillion yards, but he just can't do it in big moments of hitting the big throw and thus loses games and ends up as a back? I mean, sure. There are tons of guys that are backups in the NFL who at one point their teams thought they were the future. Mariota is the backup in Washington. Sam Howell last year, Washington said he's our guy. He's the backup in Seattle. So it happens. Drew Lock was a second-round pick. He's now the backup for the Giants. It happens. But to say that I know that's what's going to happen with Levis, I can't do that. Because I don't know that. Josh says, I think Brian Callahan has credibility. And what he's saying about Will Levis and the positivity through 2 days should make you feel optimistic. When he was being hired, one of the experience we heard was that he ripped into the Bengals offense and they whooped San Francisco. There you go, TD. He may pump out positivity, but he will get real. He said today that he ripped their ass for fumbling the football too much yesterday, and I'm glad he did because somebody needed to, because it looked like they were playing. I honestly wondered, I'm like, did they grease up the footballs before practice yesterday? Because, I mean, it was, again, they're not even wearing pads, and guys are fumbling the ball. Now, I do think this is a Denard Wilson thing, but I saw, and then Wiley and Josh Gibbons got into it over this, but I see that when they go to even just kind of touch in practice where they're not tackling and they're not, thudding with the pads. I mean, I saw Gibbons go right for the ball where Wiley had it. And I mean, he clubbed it and I know that's what they're teaching, but I could have broke his hand. So I understand like why the player would be mad, but that's what can't play football scared. Cannot play football scared. But so I do know that there's some of that may be leading to the fumbles. But again, like Brian Callahan said today, the fumbles are unacceptable. And he said he got in their rear ends about it, and I'll take his word. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. TD is here at First Horizon Park. What he thought today at practice, what he thought yesterday at practice. We will get right into that next. Again, we are live at First Horizon Park where the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight at 6:35. Home Run Derby X is with all the legends, going to be Saturday, August 31st. Be excited about that. And be sure to enjoy the Game Summer Ticket Tour presented by Green River Whiskey. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ Sports Bar and Grill at 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro today from 4 to 6 p.m. as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Also get signed up for the grand prize, tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game, streaming live on, whoops, let me click that button. There we go. Much better. Stillman and Company here on the program, live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is a Thursday at 3 o'clock, although we haven't done this in a while. We've been in vacation periods, things like that. TD is here. Hello, TD. How are you?
What's going on, man? I'm doing really well. Another practice in the books and the beautiful view of the Nashville skyline and the sound stadium here. Life is good.
So what's crazy about, again, being out here at First Horizon Park where the Sounds are playing the Charlotte Knights at 6:35 and Home Run Derby X is going to be here on Saturday, August 31st. Nick Swisher will stop by in a couple hours, which should be pretty exciting. But what's crazy is you're right down the road from the facility where day 2 of practice just went down. So, TD, what have we seen from the first 2 days of practice?
Yeah, I mean, first 2 days is pretty clear they're working on all underneath stuff. There was a mandate to not go deep with the ball. Although there was a throw today, Levis did take a shot to Tyler Boyd on a seam. Not a good throw. He put a little too much on it, which is interesting because Levis is a guy that's known for the rocket, and if he would have Brett Favre that thing, it would have been a nice catch. I'm talking about like putting everything he has into it. It'd have been a nice catch. But McQuarrie, because there was too much on it, he was able to knock it down. But nevertheless, they were looking to keep everything underneath, like the intermediate to short passing game, because they just didn't want to, overdo it the first couple of days of practice. Thing that I've been impressed with is just the way these guys are getting after it in the trenches. J.C. Latham was pretty impressive today, just finishing blocks, whether it's a run block or, finishing through on pass pro and those types of things. I think, Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut, as well as Tajay Spears, they all had some nice runs. There was one where Haskins, like, he put a cut on top of a cut. And I'm like, wow, that's 6'2", 228 doing that, Julius Chestnut, you could tell he lost some weight. He has a little more explosiveness. He squirted through and had a long run too. So those are some of the things I noticed. There's definitely an intense level of competition that's coming from that defense. And I guess, you got an old school guy like Denard Wilson who makes the guys do up downs before they do install period. Now he had Shane Ray doing by himself. He said, hey, look, man, initiation time. You want to be part of the gang, you got to go through it. So they had him, they got in a circle and he had to do the up downs on his own. I thought that was pretty funny.
So I heard Brian Callahan today. He's very, very happy with the way Will Levis has performed through the first 2 days of practice. Is what he said match up with what you've seen on the field so far?
Yeah, I think so, because you are seeing good timing. There are a couple throws, where he hit Chig Okonkwo, he hit Wiley, he hit. There were a few. Long story short, the throws that he's making, like, it's very clear that what he wants to do is be ready to get rid of it at the top of the drop. That's one of the things, talking to Rob Williams, that was the big thing, loading up. So that way he hits that last step at the top of the drop and it's just a bounce back spring forward and the ball comes out. And you're seeing that.
What do you make so far of some of the new guys that have been out there? Somebody texted earlier today and said, how's Tony Pollard look so far? We already heard that Awuzie's got the calf strain.
Mhm.
L'Jarius Sneed today, I think, was the first day of his maintenance program that we're seeing. But
yeah,
you brought up Latham. How have kind of the new guys fit in so far?
I could tell Latham is getting more comfortable. Today you saw him doing more talking, and there was one play where, like, he finished the run block. They ran past him. He fell to the ground, but he got up. He's clapping real hard and he's pumping his fist. Those are different signs that you could tell, okay, like, he's getting in the groove of things. So I think everything is going to be fine with him. Some of the other newer guys, you mentioned Cheeto Awuzie, and I saw on Facebook and Twitter, and even you had said, you like, how doing what? He went through an NFL practice, and things could happen as you're going through a practice, even if you're going through a walkthrough, like, you could pull a muscle.
Sammy Sosa missed 2 weeks one time because he sneezed. I think he had back.
Yeah, well, we know there were a lot of other things associated with Sammy Sosa.
I
remember
he was going to be out here at Home Run Derby X. That would bring people into the stands.
Yeah, I remember he was built like me, and then he turned into what he was. So yeah, that's a different thing. But injuries can happen. Like, this game is 100% injury. You're going to have something happen. But Sneed, I think he wasn't available. He wasn't on the field during stretch and individual period. He came out, and then he was just kind of there, standing there, for Trey Avery and Judy Lawley and all the guys that come over to him after they had their reps. So he was doing the leadership thing that way. But I think overall, the new additions, the one I want to talk about is Kenneth Murray. And it's funny because I asked him after, I was like, man, when I think of you, like, you're the guy that I picture the coach putting the arm around and pointing somewhere and just saying, just go bust stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, exactly. He said, this scheme is allowing me to just go wreck SHIT, and he was like, I'm trying to prove SHIT. I like the I don't know what exactly the word would be. I guess the attitude that is coming out in hearing him talk, and you see him just playing downhill. In fact, Brian Callahan said that he's a problem. Like, we had some problems with him. That's what he said. When it comes to, like, combo blocks, and you combo and you go up to the backer, they can't get there because he's shooting the gap too quick, and diagnosing and going and making the play. He, in my opinion, is going to be a productive player. I really feel that way.
He's the guy. And this time of the year, I've always got to pull out the roster and, like, oh, who is that? That is, like, if it's not Levis or Hopkins, it's like, and guys that were picked in the first round, and I see their bodies, and I'm like, that is a first round body.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, who is 56? And I was like, Oh, Kenneth Murray. Got it. That's the first
Yeah.
round body right there. The Oklahoma 5-star recruit. He's huge.
Huge and fast and violent. And it's funny because I asked him about that. I said, this scheme you think it's going to allow you to get back to the way you played at Oklahoma? Big smile flashed across his face. And he was like, yeah.
Now, the guy who I was surprised at his size when he talked to the media yesterday, for some reason, I thought Jamal Adams would be big. Probably because he played like when he was Jamal Adams of 2018-19, he played like a tank.
Yeah.
And he was up there. He he was regular sized yesterday, which I was almost shocked by. But having known of Jamal Adams, the player, and then hearing Jamal Adams yesterday talk about all the things he's been through, talk about how he was in a wheelchair at times because of
his mom, right?
Grandmother,
excuse me.
All of that. I was like, man, I am rooting for Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
I'm not betting on him because, again, that would be, again, he's missed so many games and for him. What have you thought through 2 days of practice about Adams? And when a guy like Awuzie goes out, not that he should be out for all of training camp or anything, but it makes me think, okay, if they lose guys during games, they're going to need other guys to step up. How do you feel like Adams kind of fits in all of this of where he may end up?
I think what they're doing with him is definitely good. Same thing as far as like just go rack stuff. One thing I will say, I agree with you on the bigger. Like I thought he would have a bigger presence.
Was it you that asked him yesterday that the Seahawks asked him to move to line?
Yeah.
He's not. When I saw him in person, I'm like, he's not a linebacker.
Yeah, well, you look at some of the guys. You look at Jayon Brown. You even look at the best linebacker in the league, in San Francisco. He's not the biggest guy, but, it's the aggression that he plays with. I think if he wanted to do it, he could do it. Adams could do it. But to me, the thing that I've seen in these 2 days is he's quicker than I thought. Because when I associate bad coverage, like I associate a guy who has bad change of direction skills and those types of things. I didn't really see that. Now, granted, you're talking shorts and T-shirts, helmet, etc. So we'll see how things go when the pads come on. But if they use him correctly, you see him working in different spots, whether it's sub packages and different places, moving him around the football field, allowing him to blitz from different areas and sometimes cover. Yeah, he had a would-be sack yesterday. Look, when you get and as Rand Carthon said, you get 9.5 sacks, like you're clearly a guy who knows how to get to the quarterback. He knows how to get to the quarterback.
Do you think that they're going to, and I know that again, clearly was sensitive when you asked about Seattle wanting to move him to linebacker and him saying, yeah, they thought that, I thought different kind of thing. And the Titans aren't asking him to go to linebacker, but I do wonder if that may be the answer. We talked about, Gibbons' lack of foot speed in the middle there, and that might be a take him off, put Adams on. But I also, if Adams is right, I don't see them taking Adams off the field very often.
Yeah, how they use him is going to be interesting. That mix between he and Amani Hooker, who I think Amani Hooker is going to be on the field all the time, but between he and Elijah Molden, and Roger McQuarrie, because how they mix those three in. Because the thing that's pretty cool about it is all three of them could play that nickel spot. Elijah Molden is a pretty solid blitzer, and actually, I'm gonna say McQuarrie is the strongest tackler out of all of them, but Molden is a pretty solid tackler as well. So
I don't want McQuarrie coming off the field.
Yeah, I think he needs to. They'll be in that sub package most of the time anyway. You know what I mean? And I agree. I think he is one of their best defensive players.
So you asked the question of Rand Carthon Monday about a DeAndre Hopkins extension, and I don't think he really hid the fact that they like DeAndre.
Pretty clear.
And then you asked the question to DeAndre today about DeAndre liking being a Titan, and I don't think DeAndre hid how DeAndre feels. So what does that mean, and where do we think this is headed? We'll get into that next with TD, as it is the TD Power Hour. We are live from First Horizon Park, where once again, the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight, 6:35. Always great tickets available for that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
When asked about possible extension, Rand said that where you stand with this organization, with this franchise. Can you dictate, verbalize to us where you feel you stand with?
I take it day by day. I love Tennessee. I love what Miss Amy's doing. So I think this is the happiest I've been in any organization. So just let that speak for itself.
What is it about this organization that makes you so happy?
How Miss Amy run things. It's a great place to be. She's putting pieces together, to try to win, and it's exciting.
Well said by DeAndre Hopkins today, talking about contract extension. What is it? Oh, I love it here. This is great. Miss Amy does a fabulous job. What is it that you like about it? Oh, I like the way that Miss Amy does things. It reminds me of a couple of years ago. I don't know if you saw this last week. Ralph Ockenfels, who was a VP of marketing ish for the Titans for years. They announced his retirement. And years ago, when all the drama was going around of Mike Mularkey and John Robinson, and they had made the playoffs and they were going to New England, and I heard Ralph Ockenfels do an interview, and he was talking about how, well, under Amy's leadership, we've XYZ, and Amy has just had this vision of XYZ. And I told Floyd that, and Floyd goes, "Way to go, Ralphie." And so here's DeAndre. Like, DeAndre, would you be interested in contract extension? Sure. I'll tell you, Miss Amy just does a fabulous job. But it's clear that Rand has a lot of respect for DeAndre, the way that he talked about it on Monday. It is clear that DeAndre Hopkins, at least based off the things that he said to you today, would not be opposed if the Titans offered him a contract extension of maybe perhaps signing it if the money's right or whatever. He sounds very happy being a Tennessee Titan, which leads me to this, which is, if the Titans love DeAndre and DeAndre loves the Titans, is this a foregone conclusion they're going to get a deal done before the start of the season?
I don't think it's foregone. I think there are different things that have to be considered. And if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I'm saying I want to come back too, because, at 32 years old, he just turned 32 last month. I don't want to go to another organization and learn a whole new. I'm settled in now, and in a city that I love, right? So when you look at that, I'm going to do what I can to at least show face to make it clear, hey, look, I want to be here. So for him, I get it. Foregone conclusion, he wants to do that. For the Titans, you have to factor in like where they are in this stage. No team wants to undergo a true rebuild, right? Sometimes they could reload like the Texans did, but even you look at the Texans, like they were bad for a few years, right? And that's how they got the draft picks to pile up. I think really what it comes down to is how that all fits. And I saw someone has said that, okay, we'll go with from here on out, go with the series of 1-year deals with Hopkins. Well, why not do a 2-year deal, with a guarantee in the first year and the second year, low guarantee. Why not do that, right?
So my suggestion in all of this would be kind of in between the two, of not just a 1-year extension for Hopkins, but I mean, he's making $14 million this year. He's better. The 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's a $20 million player right now. Given that, better than that is $30 million. He is, I think, probably about a $20 million receiver. So I'd give him $6 million more this year to show, hey, we really do value you. We really do. And I'd give him $18 million next year with about 4 or 5 guaranteed. So he's going to make guaranteed with the 6 this year and then the 4 or 5 next year, anywhere from 10 to 11 million in guaranteed money. And 18 million next year, I think, is probably going to be fair market value, given that we expect the receiver salaries to go up even as he gets older. And I think it's, to me, if you end up walking away at the end of the year and you have to pay him $4 million or $5 million, I think you can accept that. If he's not the guy that he was last year. And if he is the guy he was last year, you're going to want to pay him $18 million next year.
And I think if you do it now, you're gambling on the results, right? Because you're looking at the game log. I didn't think about it till before I looked it up. I said, if I'm not mistaken, most of his touchdowns came from Will Levis. Well, all of his touchdowns last year came with Will Levis throwing him the football. Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, 3 against Atlanta, 1 against Jacksonville, 1 against the Colts, 1 against the Dolphins, that was a sweet play.
Yeah.
Levis running to it right and Hopkins uncovered and he threw it to him. And then the one against the Jaguars. So that is, that's 7, all from Levis.
No, the last one, Jaguars, would be Tannehill.
Yeah, excuse me. So 6 of his 7. Good catch.
And that was
6
when
of his 7.
Tannehill was just literally just peppering DeAndre to get him a million
to get him
bucks or whatever.
the extra. Yeah, right. So 6 of his 7.
But I also feel too, like, when it comes to receivers and quarterbacks and when it comes to like young receivers and young quarterbacks, I do think there's something that when the quarterback is a veteran, then it's kind of his job to bring the receivers along. But when the quarterback is young, the veteran receivers, I think, are a good thing to help bring the quarterbacks along. And it feels like Hopkins is kind of taking Levis under his wing a little bit.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Now, here's the thing, though, and D. Mace has said it yesterday, and he made a good point.
By the way, I am shocked that D. Mace is not like DeAndre's agent and pushing that DeAndre should be, paid more and paid with a deal. And I'm shocked by it.
And this, he's saying, don't sign him.
I know.
So I think when you look at it, it's like, okay.
Could you imagine how he would have reacted if he had heard them saying in Baltimore, hey, let's not re-sign Derek Mason for a little bit.
But it was such a different situation. Like those Ravens were still competitive.
Sure.
Clearly it was established that they're not reloading. It was established, you know what I mean? But I think when you look at this situation, if they draft a receiver next year, where's he going to fall in line? You know what I mean? And that's something to consider. But I would look at, it's either going to be Boyd or Hopkins. I think re-signing one of them isn't a bad idea. Having one of them, and then you continue to see what you have in Burks. You draft one, and now you have that with Ridley all in the mix, and now you got something working for now and into the future.
So because people have actually, when I brought this up, they've brought up the drafting angle of this. My theory is they were going to take Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. if they were there at 7. So they were prepared to draft a receiver this year. The same way that I feel like if Boyd leaves in free agency, they re-sign Hopkins, they can still draft a receiver this year.
They could still draft a receiver this year, but you got to remember, like, they had a top 10 pick. And you got a shot, like, you don't always get a shot to get one of the best playmakers in the draft, right? So they had that shot, so they had to consider that. You notice Rome Odunze was on there and they didn't take him, right? So I think you look at later on, if they finish 15 to 20, if one of those top receivers happens to fall there, which isn't likely, because you look at, I think Luther Bolden is really out of Missouri. I think he's a really good option for them. Run and catch, works the slot. This year they're going to work him on the outside so it could show that he could work on the outside also. But I think, if they get a receiver next year, it's likely a different situation than this year because you're working with different money. You know what I mean? As far as, like, when I say money, I'm talking about draft capital. Getting a receiver in the top 10 is different from 15 to 20.
Is DeAndre a part of the team when this team, with the core that they're building right now, with Levis and Latham and Skoronski and Spears, and is he a part of the team when they expect the window to open? Because there's also a part of me that thinks that, DeMarco Murray, I think, was a humongous part of that last window, that the Titans opened, but he wasn't there when they broke through. But he was a big part of kind of bringing, Lawan and Conklin and Mariota and Henry and Byard. And like, he was a big part of that. And so was kind of Delaney, right? Like Delaney, was out in 2018 and played a little bit in 2019. But I mean, for the first 2 years of Marcus's career, I mean, it was Delaney all day.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, like, is DeAndre a part of this team when they become competitive, or is DeAndre kind of part of what gets the younger guys to when they become competitive?
I think he's back for another year. So I would say next year is when they become competitive. I think you look at 6.5 is the over-under. I'm going over that. I would say the ceiling is 9 games, right? And so
Joe says 10.
And that's viable because you always have those games where it's like, they beat who?
I know,
How?
but they also have those games that they're like, they lost a hoop.
Yeah, yeah. So it works both ways. But I mean, I think 9 games this year is the cap, and then next year, it could be expected. Okay, this is a double-digit type of win team.
I look at this year's Titans team and I think about last year's Green Bay Packer team. That is, the Packers were 3-6,
Slow start,
and
finish.
I believe they were like 6-8, and they were lucky that they drew Carolina and beat them by 3, and then they went on the run. And then because they crushed Dallas, which I really feel probably has more to do with Dallas than it does with Green Bay, but because they crushed Dallas and got into the divisional round, it was almost like, wow, look at the transformation of the Packers. Now they did San Francisco, they took them to the wire.
Threes, had the lead.
And so I think about that, and it's like, I mean, at the beginning of the year, it was, can Jordan Love be the guy? In the middle of the year, it was, Jordan Love's not the guy. At the end of the year, it is, Jordan Love is the guy, give him $50 million. And that's kind of what I feel like the Titans are going to have to go through. To your point, I think Green Bay looks at this year and says, okay, now we're ready.
Right.
And that's where I kind of feel the Titans are. And if we look at next year and say next year, now you're ready, I think DeAndre is a part of that team.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's conceivable to have him a part of that team. And maybe Boyd, moves on elsewhere and Burks assumes the slot role, or, they have a rotating slot role. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways you could split that.
All right, get your phones in for TD at 615-737-1025. That's our phone number, 615-737-1025. I have a fear with the Titans. I have 2 fears with the Titans that are keeping me up at night. I think you probably know what both of them are, but I do want your opinions on them, so we will do that next here with TD, right on the program. Again, live at First Horizon Park at Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. You said it feels kind of the same, even though Denico's not here anymore. What is kind of filling that void from a production standpoint? How do you go about filling somebody that provided as much as he did over the years?
It started yesterday. I mean, our job is to not focus on guys who we lost, but the guys who we got this year. And one thing about this league is prove and reprove. Every year you can prove who you are, but at the end of the day, you got to reprove it. And that's the mentality I'm taking. I'm into the season, and the guys who we got this year, even with the new addition, I would say, them guys got to prove that they can rush the passer and affect the game like we had in the past with Denico. But at the end of the day, we don't have Denico no more. We got new faces, and I mean, quite frankly, we got a lot of guys from last year that rush inside, even guys like Arden who had inside rushes. But I got full confidence in the guys we have right now. I'm not speaking on them no more the past. Like I said, I'm focused on the guys we have in the building. And the biggest thing is, like I said, my job is to continue to help the guys around me improve, and I improve every day I come on the field. So
I knew he was going to hate when I asked about replacing Denico Autry. That was Jeffrey Simmons yesterday. TD's with us for the TD Power Hour. So, TD, there are two things that are keeping me up at night. The first is the pass rush. The first is Denico's 11.5 sacks that are no longer in the building. The consistency of Denico Autry, just how good of a player he was when he was with the Colts and he made the Titans' life miserable, and then how good he was on the Titans and he made the Colts miserable, and now I'm afraid he's going to make the Titans miserable on the Texans. But also the fact that, they're bringing in Shane Ray, which I like, and they're going to try some of these guys that were on the practice squad last year, which, again, we're talking about Denico. So is my fear about the pass rush, my fear of going back to 2020, where it was Simmons, Landry, and everybody else, is that valid, or do you think the Titans are well prepared to absorb the Denico loss with the pass rushers they have now?
Well, I think you have to look at the secondaries on both teams. I know you said that you believe, pass rush trumps secondary. The back end and front end, they work in conjunction. They help each other. And if you remember, that team had cornerbacks that they were not going to get it cut. They were not cutting it, period. And that was kind of the nucleus of where all of this off coverage, never pressing. The pass rush could be bad, and you have corners that don't disrupt at all on the outside. Guess what? You're taking gas and pouring it on the fire. Like, it's just making it even worse. I think with these guys that they have now, when healthy, they all press. They could give that pass rush an additional click to get home and finish. So those pressures from Arden Key can become sacks because there's extra time. So to me, it's two different situations. A secondary with Snead and Awuzie in it and McCreary, that's going to help a pass rush, as opposed to Jonathan Joseph and who else? Fulton was there, right? Young Fulton, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to hurt it. So this is a better situation.
Malcolm
Butler. Now, you also have to look at this, getting those pressures from elsewhere. Jamal Adams, Kenneth Murray. Between those two guys, Rashad Weaver may be going from 4 sacks to 6 sacks, right?
Sure.
Taking Arden Key from whatever amount, what do you have, 5.5, 6 sacks to 8 sacks collectively. And that's what happens when you have a player that's really good like Denico Autry, is you got to collectively. Jeffrey Simmons going from 5.5 to 10.
So it reminds me of when Delaney broke his ankle. And I'm like, how do you replace Delaney Walker's 87 catches or whatever it was? And it's like, well, you don't replace, like Jonnu Smith is a second-year player, is not going to come in there right away and catch 80 balls. But now all of a sudden, Deion Lewis has to catch more balls, and Taywan Taylor has to catch more balls. And so I think it's kind of the same way in the sacking, but I am worried. Like, there's part of me that thinks that Sweat can help Simmons go from 5.5 to 10.
Yeah.
That he can kind of, but I don't think Sweat himself can get the Denico sacks.
No, I'm not listening to anybody say Sweat's going to get a bunch. He's not going to get a bunch of sacks. 3, 4, maybe 5. That'd be pretty good. but he's going to get pressures. That's what he did. He was getting the pressures, and Brian Murphy was getting the sacks. You know what I mean? Like he had 30-something pressures. That's what he does. So he can help a guy like Jeffrey Simmons by absorbing those. He was getting double teamed a lot today
At practice.
at practice. Yes, there were like 3 or 4 reps. I remember seeing him get double teamed. So that's just going to help Montez Sweat. It's going to help Simmons, who's lining up, at like that 5 or 3 technique. It's going to help him be able to get that one-on-one. And most offensive linemen, they're not blocking Simmons one-on-one.
If Jamal Adams stays healthy, which we all know is a huge if he stays healthy, do you think he's more the 9.5 sack guy he was in 2020? Or do you think he is more the guy who hasn't gotten a sack the last couple of years?
I definitely don't think he is the 20, the 9.5 sack.
Where he's like Javon Curse?
I mean, the way that they were blitzing him and using him off the edge, it was perfect, and he matched what they were doing. I think you could get a fragment of that, but I think he's a better player than he was over the last 2 years, just because right now he's healthy. You know what I mean?
So what was it last year? Because when he talked about what he was, he basically said I shouldn't have played. They told me that I shouldn't. I was taking Toradol shots the whole time. I at times had to be in a wheelchair but now I'm good. I'm like, what in the hell was wrong with you last year that now is okay?
I'm trying to remember I want to say ankle, but I'm not sure. I'm looking it up now while I'm
I watched the 4th game they played against the Giants. It was his first game, and it was Monday Night Football, and they were like, Jamal Adams is back, and Daniel Jones broke the pocket, and Jamal Adams went to tackle him, and he did tackle him, but it was like a simple tackle. It wasn't like a gruesome hit, wasn't like a non-contact, and he just laid on the turf like he had gotten shot.
Oh yeah, and I remember
he
rolled over.
To him?
Yeah, it was 2022. It was the quad tendon. I don't know what his injury was last year, but the good thing is they had to really examine it in order to sign him. You know what I mean? So he had to pass a physical. So that's a good thing. Like I said, I don't know what it was. So okay, looking at this, it says he had a concussion in October, and then a knee strain, a grade 1 knee strain. So the concussion was against the Giants.
So that's when he went down. Looked like he must have been knocked out. So he got shot. I was like, what happened? He tackles Daniel Jones. He goes to the ground, and I'm like I've seen dudes get hit in the face with a puck and go down, and I'm like, okay, that guy, he's out.
We know what happened.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that's keeping me up at night, John Ojukwu. This is Ojukwu. Yeah. This is a total judging a book by its cover. An undrafted free agent, 66 snaps in the NFL. He can't be my starting right tackle, can he?
You don't want to see it, but sometimes the way you match a guy with scheme and coaching staff, sometimes it works. I mean, look, Jason Peters at one time was an undrafted free agent who played tight end. We know Jason Peters is one of the best left tackles to ever play. And you could look at others. There's a lot of guys who came into their own in that position. It's just situation and coaching.
So Mike Mularkey coached Jason Peters in Buffalo. He was the head coach when they moved him from tight end to left tackle. Because I was actually talking to him when they were deciding to move J.C. Latham to left tackle. And I was talking to Mike Mularkey. I didn't ask him specifically about Latham, but I asked him about, how do you decide if you want to play a guy at right tackle versus left tackle? And he said, whoever is the most athletic guy goes to left tackle. And he goes, that's what we did in Buffalo with Jason Peters, is we put Jason Peters, because he was so athletic over there at left tackle, is a juke. I think that's well, I think it was using battery. Stillman and Company live out at First Horizon Park. Again, the Sounds tonight, 6:35, taking on the Charlotte Knights. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. TD, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the people's phones for you at 615-737-1025?
Let's go ahead to the phone.
Let's do it. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Kyle is going to kick us off on DeAndre Hopkins. Kyle, you're on with TD.
The TD Power Hour, my favorite hour of the week. I wish I could hang out for the entire hour with y'all, man. I swear to God.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, y'all are fun. I got 2 GM questions for you. I'll go with the Hopkins one first. I asked Jared this yesterday. For some reason, he doesn't know who Burton III is in college for Missouri, but
too early for me.
Yeah. But would you spend that money on a right tackle instead of Hopkins and then finally be done with that and then get someone like him, Burton, to grow with Will? Because I think he's going to be a stud.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player. I mean, he's already a good player. I think he'll be a good one in the league. But I don't know about spending that money on right tackle just because typically the good ones don't become available.
Yeah, that's the thing is I'm like, who's going to be available that it's going to be somebody, at right tackle that could.
Right.
And it's way too early for that. Kyle, thank you. It's way too early for that to know who's going to be available in free agency next year at right tackle. Here's the one thing I would say, though. As far as right tackle's concerned, there was one guy that I thought could be had in free agency and the Giants on this Hard Knocks, the in-season.
I finally tapped in and watched. My daughter, she came down from Philly, and she's staying with me now, and she happened to be watching HBO Max. I was like, wait a minute, you got a subscription to that?
You're like, put on the Hard Knocks?
I watched 5 episodes last night.
Okay, so I'm like at episode 3 or whatever, but I got concerned because I wanted Jermaine Illuminor so bad, but I think that this Joe Shane is a doofus. And so he wanted Jermaine Illuminor so bad and ended up signing him. So now I'm like, wait a minute, do I really still want Jermaine Illuminor because he's a doofus? And I'm like, but at the same, like, he's the one guy that got there. And I guess Michael Owenu technically got there, but he re-signed with New England.
But even still, 9 million.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even 10 million a year.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But to me, I think you just go ahead and look at what you have. Whoever wins this job, I think, needs to be the right tackle of the future. That's the way I feel about it, because all 3 of these guys are young guys, right? Like you look at MPF, aka
PT,
coming into year 3, right? You got.
It'd be nice if he was eligible to participate at some point.
Yeah, they got to get him out there. That's the biggest, the availability part of it. If that's something that he's going to have to shake that and make himself available more. Now, the knee was scoped. These things happen from time to time, but he needs to get out there and start competing for the job because somebody has to win it, right? And maybe they don't have that on the roster. Maybe they sign a guy who gets released by another team.
Mm-hmm.
And because numbers, sometimes the numbers games will make a good guy come available and you grip him up and now he's your guy.
Could Brunskill do it?
Corey Levin signing hurt Brunskill, man.
For the backup center spot?
Yeah. I don't see why he can't. But he just doesn't seem to be the guy that's in the mix for that.
Yeah. Plus, doesn't he make like $3 million this year? And I could see the Titans wanting to keep that $3 million.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be there. I think he's on the roster. He's a swing guy because he could play.
Talk about Brunskill. Like he's the Swiss Army knife.
He could play everything on the line.
But Bill Callahan said that Leroy Watson, like I asked him about Leroy Watson when he had his first availability, and he said he was like, he can play all the positions. And then as we were talking about Jason Peters, he compared him to Jason Peters, which I thought was a little bit of a stretch, but he's the guru. I'm not. JD says, well, I guess, who do you see as the right tackle? I agree with Jared. It's a position of concern. I guess we just went through the right tackle spot, but I think it's PT's job to lose. Do you agree with that?
Eventually it's his job to lose. But you can't win the job if you're not in the race.
Darcy says, would you think about not paying DeAndre Hopkins with the possibility of going after T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk?
Higgins, yes. Now, I personally think Ayuk is a better. I like Ayuk better than Higgins, but you were talking, yesterday about a deep threat.
Mhm.
He's not a burner, but he's a legit deep threat.
Talk about Ayuk.
No,
Higgins. Yeah.
I think Higgins stylistically fits into this scheme better than Ayuk. Ayuk and Calvin Ridley, in my opinion, are very similar players, where they're route like gods. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
run really good routes. I think Ridley is a little bit quicker. Ayuk is a little better after the catch, but they're similar players. So I wouldn't want to duplicate what I have. I would rather get something that fits better, right? In T. Higgins. But the money that T. Higgins is going to garner is going to be big. And you're gambling because you see what could happen sometimes with these receivers. You sign them like they're good somewhere else. You sign them and they're not the same with you in a different role.
So I don't think Ayuk gets to free agency. I think Samuel is the guy they're going to move off of.
I would agree with that because Samuel gets banged up a lot.
And so then the question is, do you want a $25 million Debo or whatever it is after the hits he's going to take this year, after all the hits he's taken?
No.
And then I mean, that said, though, like I did watch the receiver series, and I do love Debo's juice.
Man, juice is an understatement, man. That dude,
he got it. I mean, I freaking love that guy's juice. See, the thing about the Niners, though, like I find this Trent Williams holdout to be fascinating because, again, we can debate the cap or not, but the money that the 49ers are going to have to dole out, given the fact that Brock Purdy's going to go from less than $1 million to $56 million or whatever next year, plus Ayuk, I can see them saying, like, I don't know if we can pay $25 million for the left tackle anymore. Yeah. And that's where I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute, hold on. If Trent Williams doesn't want to show up because he wants to be guaranteed some money next year, I'll guarantee Trent Williams some money next year. Mm-hmm. I don't care if he's 200 years old. I'll guarantee him some money next year.
You said, AJC, you going home.
Oh, yes. JC,
back to right.
You're going to right tackle. And then I want you to follow Trent Williams everywhere he goes for the next 2 years. And then you will be playing left tackle and you will be Trent Jr.
You know how beautiful that would be? Look, all right.
And you wouldn't even have to give up a first rounder, I think. If Williams is so unhappy that he's not coming back, you probably don't have to give up a first rounder.
That would be beautiful for JC Latham, for Bill Callahan. It would be beautiful for everybody in 615.
You never have to hear the right tackle story again if they went out. Here's the thing, though. In San Francisco, I feel personally like because of Purdy's number and Ayuk's number, that at some point, like they know. Like, hey, like
something has to give.
Right. Debo's not coming back next year. Williams is not coming back next year. Kittle's not coming. Like somebody's not coming back or two people are not coming back.
Yeah.
And they know it, but they're going to just load it up and try to win the Super Bowl this year. And so if you pick up the phone and say, hey, Trent Williams is holding out. What do you think about? They're like, nah, we're trying to win the Super Bowl.
This is the year. This is the year.
Kinston says, with the Awuzie out and Snead on load management, who do you think will get the reps at outside corner? Could this be a prime opportunity for Caleb Farley to start his comeback story?
Well, I think, look, matter of fact, in my notes to end the day, Gabe Judy Lawley. I'll tell you that Gabe Judy, man. He and Hopkins one-on-one on the outside, switched it up to a fade.
I mean, they're letting him play from the day he showed up. They've been letting him play with the varsity team.
And he's a match because he's long, really good at getting his hands. I talked to him about it. He loves being in this scheme because he feels he's finally in a scheme that really exemplifies what he likes to do. So you got him. Look, Trey Avery, for what it's worth, he's always going to be around. He's getting the reps. I saw, you'll see Jarvis Brownlee Jr. some, Farley as well. It's an opportunity for Farley for all four of these guys, to be honest with you. And then you even got Tay Gowan in the mix too.
Where did Tay Gowan come from?
He was there last year. He played with the Eagles previously.
Ryan says, TD, any chance on Kyle Phillips?
Kyle Phillips had he ran a nice route today and got open. I think he makes the roster just on the strength of the need for slots. You know what I mean?
Ahead of Jaquan Jackson.
Jaquan had a nice catch today too. Will Levis had two nice throws. You talk about the timing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He hit Thomas Odukoya across the middle, perfect in stride. And Odakoya, you know, I guess he took the Timberlands off, the construction boots, and put some shoes on, some sneakers on, because he was running pretty fast when he caught it, and then he hit Jaquan Jackson on the sidearm throw. So yeah, I mean, that's a guy in the mix just for like because of the slot and also the punt return duties.
Couple of just quick ones off the top of my head. I think there's a battle for tight end 1 between Chig and Josh Wiley. Do you see the same
I
thing?
would say so. Yeah, I would say so.
And then secondly, or I guess lastly, a couple people have asked about the new kickoff. Have we seen that in practice?
No, I didn't. I was looking for that today, but they did so much work on punt team. So no.
Everybody keeps talking about this new kickoff. I have no idea what it's going to look like. Now, I don't watch a lot of the XFL or whatever it's called now. I don't watch any of that. And I think that's what they do in that league is what they're going to do in the NFL.
Yeah, what they did, it was 1 year of it. So I don't, you know what it's going to look like, but what you wonder is because
it's not XFL players and it's NFL players.
No, because the probability of a kick return happening is increased so much. There's more like investment into, okay, let's strategize this because it's going to happen. Whereas before, you know, what did you see them all the time like this, right?
Yeah.
Hands in the air, watching it go over their head, you know, touchback.
Vrabel said on the Pardon My Take podcast, he thinks that everyone's just going to end up kicking the ball out of the end zone anyways. That he thinks it's going to just all be, and he's like, I know the analytic guys will tell me the difference between the 25 and the 30, but he thinks that they'll all just whatever it may be.
I got to watch that, man.
TD, good to see you as always.
Good to be seen. Yes.
615-737-1025. TD would not say, you know, well, I don't know. I don't know if I asked you if you'd say this. Do you think they get a deal done with Hopkins or not?
I think so.
Okay. He thinks they get a deal done with Hopkins. I have one simple question. This has been on my mind all day since DeAndre basically said, I want them to give me a contract extension without saying it. We'll get to that coming up next. First, I got to tell you, though, about Window Nation. That's right. I absolutely love Window Nation. It is smoking hot outside, though the sun hasn't been just right on your windows the last couple of days, but it is smoking hot outside. If you have inefficient windows, you'll have high utility bills all year long. Let Window Nation take care of the most energy-efficient windows you can buy, and they were recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies. Plus, you know my guys at Window Nation always have a great deal. I can't tell you about the other companies. I can only tell you about the one I use and I love, which is Window Nation. Right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free. Again, every 2 windows you'll buy. You buy 10 windows, you get 5 free. For every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free, plus 0 down and no interest or payments for 2 years. Stop paying more than you have to. So schedule an in-home estimate right now at 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90Nation, windownation.com. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are live at First Horizon Park, where the Sounds today are taking on the Charlotte Knights, 6:35 with the first pitch. Home Run Derby X, Manny Ramirez, Andrew Jones, Nick Swisher, bunch of legends. That's all coming out here at on August 31st. And so Nick Swisher will stop by here at some point. So I saw a lot of people, Ian, in the chat that were complaining about the camera. So I switched the camera.
Okay.
I hope people, I don't want everybody to think that I'm just going to acquiesce all the time, but I did see a lot of the complaining. So we've made some changes. So on Monday, TD asked Ran Carthon about DeAndre Hopkins, and Ran Carthon, Ian, do we have that cut from Monday?
Probably. One sec.
Okay, so TD asked Ran Carthon about DeAndre Hopkins. We've been talking about a possible DeAndre Hopkins extension for a little bit. And I've been thinking in my head, I'm like, I think I would sign him. I said on Monday I would sign him to an extension. I would go with an extra $4 million this year, and I'd give him $18 million next year, 4 of which is guaranteed. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, I can cut my losses. But I want DeAndre under contract for the Titans next year. Rand was asked about it. Here's what he said.
You start the year. Any thought on DeAndre Hopkins and extending him? Like, have you talked to Kelton and those guys about that at all?
We've identified a number of guys that, we'd like to continue to move forward with, and eventually take care. But you guys have heard me, we're going to keep family business in terms of talking about their contracts and what's next for them. But we as a staff, we have identified some guys that, we'd like to have here, long term.
Is DeAndre one of them?
He's one of the guys that's on our team, and and we've talked about a number of guys on the team to have those conversations. One thing I appreciate about D-Hop is if you guys have gotten to know him, D-Hop is straightforward, and and D-Hop and I, we can have some straightforward conversations, and we have, and we do, and so D-Hop knows how we feel about him. And I think that's a big thing, especially for a veteran, at this stage in his career. And I think the way he's shown up here, the way he's bought into a new staff kind of shows how he feels about us and what we have going.
Okay. So it sounds to me like when he says, hey, with D-Hop, he and I have had those conversations. He knows where he stands with us. It kind of sounds like we know where D-Hop stands with them, right? Like it sounds like we know that they like DeAndre Hopkins, would like to keep DeAndre around. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this. When it comes to DeAndre, DeAndre was asked today about a contract extension. Here's what DeAndre had to say.
When asked about possible extension, Rand said that where you stand with this organization, with this franchise. Can you dictate, verbalize to us where you feel you stand with it?
I take it day by day. I love Tennessee. I love what Miss Amy's doing. So I think this is the happiest I've been in any organization. So, just let that speak for itself.
What is it about this organization that makes you so happy?
How Miss Amy run things. It's a great place to be. She's putting pieces together, to try to win, and it's exciting.
Okay, so we heard what Rand had to say about DeAndre Hopkins. Now we've heard what DeAndre Hopkins has had to say about the Titans. It sounds to me like the Titans want DeAndre Hopkins. And it sounds like DeAndre wants the Titans. I also have to give DeAndre credit because he knows exactly where his bread is buttered when he's talking about, oh man, the way Miss Amy's runs this team, this is where I want to be. And I do like that. I do. Hey, he knows who's writing the checks, and I give him credit for that. So again, DeAndre makes it clear he wants to be a Titan. He likes it here. And Rand makes it clear that he likes DeAndre. So why don't they just sign a contract extension? You see what I'm saying? It's almost like I've had experiences in my life where it's like, so you like him, right? Yep. And you like her, right? Yep. So why aren't y'all together? What's the holdup here with DeAndre? Well, Jared, if you give DeAndre Hopkins a contract, you won't be able to pay Brandon Ayuk next year, or T. Higgins next year, or Are you going to want to pay T. Higgins $30 million next year? Because that's what it's going to cost. I'm talking about $18 million for DeAndre next year, $6 million extra for this year because DeAndre's making $14 million. And DeAndre at 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. DeAndre's a $20 million player. In today's economy, if Tank Dell, or excuse me, if who's the other one? Nico Collins. If Nico Collins is a $24 million player, DeAndre is a $20 million player. Congratulations, you got him for 14, but he's a $20 million player. So I want DeAndre to know, again, how much I care, how much I want him, how much I like him. So I'm going to give him more money this year, but then for next year, it's only $4 million guaranteed. Now it's 18 million total, which again, still is below what Ayuk's going to cost 30. Next year, T's probably going to cost 30. So you have to weigh those two. And I just don't understand. Like, somebody help me understand this. The Titans signed Calvin Ridley. They had DeAndre on the team this year. They signed Calvin Ridley. They still would have drafted a wide receiver if one of the wide receivers had fallen to them. And they didn't. They can still draft a receiver next year. Tyler Boyd's on a 1-year deal. We don't know if Treylon Burks is going to be any good or not. I'm not willing to assume that. So we have the Titans over here who say, you know, we've circled a handful of guys that we love, that we want to keep around. Is DeAndre one of them? Yes. DeAndre, you want to be here? Absolutely. I've never been happier than being here on the 6-win Titans. What am I missing? He's 32. I get it. It's not 24. But again, there's a guy on our station who caught over 400 passes after the age of 32 years old. He fits with the quarterback. The coach loves him. The GM loves him. He loves it here. Aren't those the kind of guys that you give contract extensions to? And I understand. Everybody thinks you have to extend players you drafted when their rookie contract is up. And I use Brandon Ayuk as the example. Everybody thinks that, oh, you've got to extend Brandon Ayuk to a contract because, you know, he's coming into his prime. And so this isn't one size fit all. Some guys are really, really good on second and third contracts. I mean, Anquan Bolden was really good in his career after his first big contract. So again, it'd be one thing if DeAndre was coming off of an injury last year. It'd be another thing if DeAndre showed signs that he still had it, but underperformed for the season. And it'd be another thing if the Titans were the 49ers and had a quarterback that they had to pay from $975,000 to $56 million next year. But they don't. The Titans want DeAndre. DeAndre wants the Titans. What am I missing? Somebody help me out. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I am very disappointed. I'm shocked. First of all, I'm shocked by some commentary on this DeAndre thing. Remember, DeAndre doesn't like me. So but I'm pro DeAndre on this. But I was shocked by somebody who didn't have DeAndre's back. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, live from First Horizon Park, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Hey, it's Big Joe. What are you doing this afternoon? I need you to come see me. That's right. We're at MJ Sports Bar and Grill. It is the game ticket tour brought to you by Green River Whiskey. We're at 1253 Northwest Broad in Murfreesboro. We got tickets to almost everything. Post Malone, Sammy Hagar, Megadeth, Beach Boys. Plus, you can enter to win the Game Summer Ticket Tour grand prize. That's tickets to the Preds, Titans, and Sounds games, plus the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. But you got to come see me. We're at MJ Sports Bar and Grill in the Borough till 6 o'clock today. So stop by 1253 Northwest Broad in the Borough. For more information on our game ticket tour, just go to GameNashville.com. Our game ticket tour is brought to you by our good friends at Green River Whiskey. And I'll see you down here at MJ Sports Bar and Grill in the Borough.
I'm not saying, and I don't think nor Willie is saying, don't sign him back or don't think about signing him back. But there's no benefit to signing him back today. There's no, what if he goes out there and pulls a hamstring? Because right now he's in that 32, he'll be 33 next year. What happens if he gets injured? Now you're on a hook for this money. What happens if Traylon Burks starts to show you that, okay, after that third year, okay, he has it. Now you didn't sign this other guy to this big contract, which is Calvin Ridley. Now you brought back another Asian wide receiver and D-Hop. Now you got to try to sign Traylon Burks. It doesn't work that way, especially not at the wide receiver position, okay? Maybe at the quarterback position, maybe at the defensive end position, but not at the wide receiver position. They're not looking to hurry up and sign 32, 33. And again, I'm not saying don't sign D-Hop, because I know a lot of people say, oh, he's saying don't sign. No, listen to my words very carefully as I listen to Bill Polian's words very carefully. I'm not saying don't sign D-Hop, but there's no benefit to signing him right now unless you're getting him at a bargain basement deal.
That was Derek on the midday show yesterday. And I have to say, I was freaking stunned by that commentary. So this is kind of crazy. And again, I understand the world does not revolve around me, but what I'm about to say makes it sound like I think that. This morning I got in the car and I heard the Robbie and Rex Road program. Like when I got in the car, it was for the Rex rant. And I literally heard a return cut of me. And then when I was in the car coming back from practice and heading into the studio, I heard the midday show, Willie and Derek. I heard Willie tease, we've got a bone to pick with Jared. And I'm like, Ian, I swear to God, I was like, what did I do? Like,
it's always something.
I know, but normally it's like one thing, like when Willie was like on his whole boohoo UC Soros thing, and I would sit there and yell about it. I understood the bone that would be picked there. So when they were like, we've got a bone to pick with Jared, I sat through the tease because I didn't know what it was about. So I wanted to hear what it was, and I did that was so bad. And it was the idea of extending DeAndre Hopkins. And Derek is yelling about, no, you can't do this. And I'm like, Derek?
Well, they said they wouldn't do it right now. They would wait till after the season and find out.
Okay.
They're not totally against it.
And my rebuttal to Willie, and I don't know if he shared this on the air or not, my rebuttal to Willie was, that's what they tried to do with Denico Autry. Denico Autry did not have an all-pro season last year. Denico had a very, very good season at 33 years old or whatever he was. I think he was 33. Maybe he was 32. And they wanted to re-sign Denico. And they should have wanted to re-sign Denico. I wanted him to re-sign Denico. Ian, did you want him to re-sign Denico?
Depending on the price. Sure. I mean,
I wanted Denico back. Denico's a good player.
There's no telling when the drop-off is going to come, though. That's the problem.
Agreed. But again, life is about making choices. And Denico's consistency had given me enough to say that I'm willing to make the choice that he'll be a good player this upcoming season and maybe for the next season after that or whatever. And then they couldn't because Denico got to the market and the Houston Texans offered him $11 million. The same can be said with their leading tackler last year, Azeez. Now, I'm not so heartbroken over that because I'm not the biggest Azeez fan in the world, but Azeez is better than what they have now. They thought they were going to re-sign both guys. They wanted to re-sign both guys. And then they got to the market. And when they got to the market said, you're an $11 million player, and they both took it. And I do not begrudge them for a second. Aaron Brewer got $7 million on the market. So anything is possible. Which takes me back to D-Hop. Why do I have to do it right now? And it goes back to the Bill Polian cut, which they said was out of context, which is not true. I mean, I'm not saying that Bill Polian was saying this for DeAndre right now. I'm saying what Bill Polian said, Ian, if you could get that cut from Monday from Polian, what Bill Polian said was if a guy goes into the season as a free agent, you have to assume that you're going to lose him or you're going to tag him. In the case of DeAndre, you're not going to tag him. I heard Derek say that. He's right.
And who was Bill Polian referring to specifically in this clip again?
So it was a discussion about Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and I think Micah's included, but Micah's deal's not up at the end of the year.
Gotcha.
It was a Dallas conversation.
Okay.
And he was talking about how, but I think that, again, and I listened to the whole thing, but this Bill Polian is not talking in his experience about, well, when I was running the Dallas Cowboys and Dak and CeeDee Lamb were up for new contracts. That's not what he's saying. He's talking about how when he was GM of the Panthers, when he was GM of the Colts, when he was GM of the Bills, and there was a guy going into the year on the last year of his deal, like if you didn't re-sign him before the start of the year, you would lose him in free agency. Here's what Polian said.
But you also have to say, as a GM to the owner, and I've said it on a couple of occasions, once they get to free agency, once we go beyond the start of the season, you have to assume he's leaving, or you're going to tag him one way or the other. Simple as that.
To me, that's for every player. Like once they get there, they're leaving.
Well, not every player is tag worthy.
No, but Denico wasn't tag worthy. Aziz wasn't tag worthy.
So is it apples to apples?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Denico 2.0. And Willie said back to me, like, well, this team's rebuilding. They don't need Denico. I'm like, well, you take that up with them because they tried to re-sign Denico. And then do you want to know what Willie said to me, which I thought, and I love Willie with all my heart, but of all the things Willie Donick has ever said to me in my life, this was, and let me say this, at the beginning of our relationship, I don't think Willie liked me very much. I think Willie likes me now, but I don't think he liked me very much at the beginning of our relationship. This is the one that if I wore glasses would make me have to take my glasses off and be like, hold on, wait a minute. You want to know what Willie said to me?
What's that?
He said, well, I mean, they lost with Aziz and Denico, so they can lose without him.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to hear that from Mr. Boohoo UC Soros. I do not want to hear that. From the months of crying Willie did about, no, it's not Soros's fault that they don't lose that they don't win these playoff games. I did not want to hear. Denico was a good player. Aziz was fine. I'm not a big Aziz guy, but Aziz was fine. I'm shocked that Derek Mason, with all of it, after the age, first of all, D Mace, and I love this man with all my heart, just like I love Willie with all my heart. D Mace, I think to this day, holds a little bit of a grudge against the Titans because they cut him. And they cut him because of money. I don't know if it was the cap or if the cap was fake then too, but they cut him because of money. And he went to Baltimore and he had a great career and he retired a Raven. And I have no problem with him retiring a Raven, even though I hate the Ravens. But after the age of 32, Derek had 404 receptions. That's where DeAndre is right now. I'm not saying DeAndre is going to be as good as Derek was after 32, but Derek had 4,874 yards after he turned 32.
What was his free agency market like?
Well, I can't tell you that, other than I know that it was between New England and Baltimore. And he got on the plane to go to New England and Baltimore offered more money. And so then he went to Baltimore. But he wasn't 32 when that happened. Mm-hmm. And they wanted him to, I think, replace like Deion Branch or Troy Brown or one of those people. And one time before a pregame show, we were talking about that. And Floyd said, you would have won a couple of Super Bowls if you had gone up there, but you also would have gotten about 10 more concussions. And then they all laughed about it. And so, whatever. But I mean, I would expect Derek of anybody out there to defend DeAndre.
Well, an older wide receiver hitting the free agency market, is it going to be how many teams are going to come knocking at the door?
Again, if you let him go into the season, what does Bill Polian say?
There's a chance you'll lose him.
Did you think that Denico was going to get $11 million a year at his age?
You never know.
But did you think that?
I mean, I guess not.
He was $7 million last year.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think Aziz was going to get $11 million?
Probably not. No.
So again, everybody keeps telling me, well, DeAndre, who's going to pay DeAndre? It takes one. But DeAndre can't even sniff that market if you give him a contract now. That's the reason why I want to give him more money this year, is because I want DeAndre to say, well, wait a minute. I'm getting $6 million extra this year to take $18 million, which I might be worth more than next year. That's why I'm doing it. So I love those guys in the midday with all my heart, but I am absolutely, positively stunned, just stunned that Derek's like, you don't have to sign DeAndre now. I'm like, guys, we went through this last year. I can't sleep at night because I'm trying to figure out how the Titans are going to replace those 11.5 sacks that are now in the Houston Texans. Again, Aziz, I can live with that. I figured if anything, Derek would have the veteran, it's the right way to say it, veteran wide receivers back. Instead, he's too busy talking about how Traylon Burks needs to get the ball. I'm like, Traylon Burks needs to sit on the bench if everybody's healthy.
Well, they're a little bit worried about the aging core of the team.
I don't care about that. To me, that the core of the team, like we're talking about trying to compete and trying to win and it revolves around the quarterback. And then everything else you can move around. The quarterback, think about the Texans. Again, let's use the Texans. The Texans have an aging core, right? Daniil Hunter's not young. Danico's not young.
Not on offense.
Robert Woods is not young. Dalton Schultz is not young. Laramie Tunsil is not young.
Well, Tunsil's not old, and their quarterback and wide receivers are
running
young.
Back they got from Cincy, he's
Mixon.
not young. I mean, he's old, but
A running back. No one cares about running back.
And the other pass rusher is young.
Everyone's trying to lock up their young wide receivers.
So it's fine. I'm just saying, like, you can give DeAndre the money. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I'm just shocked that, again, Derek, who aged like a fine wine at wide receiver, doesn't think DeAndre is worthy of a deal to do the same. 615-737-1025. I see your phones. We'll hit them. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Do you buy into the contract year boost performance thing that a lot of people talk about, players playing better when they have 1 year left?
Man, I really don't, man. I guess you kind of go back and answer that for yourself by looking at my stats going in the contract or out of contract or just getting a contract.
That was DeAndre saying, like, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, I play much harder when I'm in a contract year than everybody else. And I, by the way, thought about looking up what DeAndre was in a contract year, not in a contract year. And then I just didn't. But I think DeAndre plays hard all the time, so I'll give him that. Ian, do you have a thought, or do you want to go to the phones on the DeAndre contract situation? Again, the Titans say they want to sign DeAndre, or they don't say it explicitly, but they say it. DeAndre didn't say it. Yeah. When Rand was like, we've got guys that we try to keep family business in-house, but we've got guys we've circled. And then I said, is DeAndre one of those guys? And then he talked about how much they love DeAndre. I think so.
I mean, looking at DeAndre's stats, it's hard to determine which one would be a contract year. I mean, they're all pretty consistent, you know?
I'm not sure DeAndre ever had a contract year. Like, I think he got extended in Houston, when it was time to get extended. And then he got a contract when he got traded to Arizona.
Then he got traded. Yeah.
And he got cut, before his contract was up. So I don't think he ever, that's just me. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robert in Spring Hill says, I would be all for re-signing D-Hop. I still think he has a lot left in the tank. However, I wondered if the Titans are thinking of replacing him with someone who may not be a Hall of Famer, but somebody younger like T. Higgins. I don't think that re-signing DeAndre Hopkins and guaranteeing him $4 million next year necessarily takes you out of the T. Higgins sweepstakes. Again, going into the offseason, unless you use the Texans as the example. Going into the offseason, the Texans re-signed Dalton Schultz to play tight end. They had Tank Dell. They gave Nico Collins a contract. They had Robert Woods at receiver. Like, they had their group, was their pass-catching group, and everything with it. They were okay. And then, all of a sudden, Stephon Diggs became available. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'll do that too. I think you can adjust on the fly here. One texter says, I don't think they will let him walk in free agency. They will resign him at the end of the year. Nobody resigns at the end of the year. If you're saying that they will resign him before free agency opens next year, that's one thing. But at that point, DeAndre's agent will have already been tampered with, and they will already know the market. So when Mike Evans signed a contract extension hours before free agency opened, I think Mike Evans signed a contract at like 8 a.m. the day that free agency opened. When Mike Evans signed that contract, his agent knew what everybody else in the league was willing to offer, because they'd already been to the combine and they'd already had their, impermissible phone calls and everything else. And that's probably why, again, if the Titans wanted to resign Azeez, they wanted to resign Denico, and they picked up the phone and said, hey, what about 3 years at $9 million for Denico? And he knows he's got $11 million, he's going to turn it down. And guys do not re-sign in December, because it's like, well, I've already made it this far and I'm having a good season, so why would I just re-sign right now unless you overpay? Now is the time where you extend a guy's contract. This is where you are proactive. Eli gets it. He texts in and says, it is stupid for the Titans to not sign Hopkins now. It only takes one team to outbid you in free agency. The Titans need to learn from their mistakes of last year. Bingo. Good text message. Again, I think about it like this. I'm worried about DeAndre having the same season he had last year. I'm not worried about DeAndre leading the league in yards or receptions or anything like that. I'm worried of DeAndre having the same consistent DeAndre season that he had last year. 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. And that was with turmoil at quarterback and Bozo, running the offense and no offensive line. This year with Bill Callahan running the offensive line, with what we expect to be stability at quarterback, we've got the guru coach, all of that. So it should be a little bit better. But again, 1,007. That's great. It takes one team to think we're on the verge of the Super Bowl and we're a receiver away. And you know what? Let's pay DeAndre. They wanted, hey, DeAndre, we want to do another 14 million with you. And it's like, okay, well, they're willing to do 17. They're willing to do 22. And you would think to yourself, 22, that's stupid. But remember, Aaron Brewer signed a 3-year deal for $7 million a year. So anything, and I mean anything, is possible. This right here, you give DeAndre more money, you give him $6 million extra to get him to $20 million, he'll take the deal for next year. Because there's no other way for him to get an extra $6 million this year. And I believe that he's worth that $6 million. So I'm all for it. 615-737-1025. Add those to your phones. Plus, I do feel the need to address something that, quite frankly, I think is common sense. And yet, the more Joe Rexroad argues it, the more he spins himself in a circle and looks crazy. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Jared, and this is where, like what Paul was saying last week at one point, it's like, I know he's smart. So when he gets into these really dumb conspiracy theories, it's like, does he really believe it, or is he just doing this for content? And I have a problem with that if you're doing it for content. I guess I have a problem if you're that dumb too. But I don't think you're that dumb. Jared is trying to push this idea that when the Titans, around Thanksgiving or whatever it was, and Diana Rossini at The Athletic had the report, Mike Vrabel's going nowhere, he's going to be the coach, that was actually intentionally lying. So, I mean, if we're going to say the Titans, I mean, I guess you could say
Amy.
And this is, again, speculation, but you could just say Amy Adams.
Sorry,
Strunk.
Miss Amy.
And he tried to make this case yesterday. We were yelling about it right before the press conference started. And I said, you're the dumbest person I know. Like yelling at, I mean, again, like that's not cool. I got out of hand a little bit.
Let's get the long fuse on display.
Yeah, well, but it took a while.
Yep,
it took a while. Like the long fuse does lead to the dynamite. The dynamite is at the end of the fuse. Okay.
It's true.
It's just, it's like, but think about the logic there. I mean, I need you to get mad about this. Think about the logic that you would have to not possess to think that Amy Adams Strunk would want it out there publicly that there's no way let's end the speculation and the talk. Vrabel is the coach next year, moving forward, Mike Vrabel. And you actually knew that's not the case, and you're lying about it. And Jared said something like, well, they could have been traded Vrabel. Like, just stop it, man.
Okay. So that was 2 days ago, I believe. And then yesterday, I don't even know what I said that got Joe worked up. But this morning, I woke up, I got in the car, and it was time for the Rex rant, and Joe was going crazy. Once again, about me being right about Mike Vrabel's fire. And at this point, I'm kind of over it. I see people every time we talk about this. What are you still talking about Vrabel? First of all, Vrabel's very popular around here. You talk about him, it gets people all worked up. But that's not the thing. I'm kind of over talking about this because I know I'm right. I was right when it happened. I was right after it happened. And I'm still right today, and I'm not really all that disappointed about that. But I am kind of enjoying him spinning himself in circles, because here's what Joe can't handle. Joe cannot handle that his publication, The Athletic, got duped. So now it's gone to, well, Jared's a broken clock, and Jared's stupid, and Jared, what was the one in that one? He's making this up for content. And we've been doing this show together for about a decade, right?
August 2016.
Well, I guess that's right. That's crazy. So we've been doing the show for about a decade. Do you think I just make up opinions?
I don't think so.
Like, do you think I'm one of these cable news hosts that just says things they know aren't true, and then when they dump their text messages, it says that they knew that they weren't true?
I don't think so.
I am not. But that's not the whole thing. So today, Joe went crazy, and I listened to it, and not only did I enjoy every second of it, but I'm starting to notice that I'm literally driving this man insane. So let's start with the first cut from Joe right here, which is, and again, my initial take was this. Diana came out on Thanksgiving Day with a report saying that sources said that the Titans are not going to fire Vrabel and they're not going to trade him. I said the next day, I don't believe it, because the last time the Titans came out and said they weren't firing the coach, they fired the coach. And the time before that, they said they weren't firing the coach, and they fired the coach. So I don't know about you guys, but when somebody constantly lies to me about something, at some point I stop trusting. But Diana hadn't, I guess, been there with the Titans, so she wrote it, and I said, I don't believe it. Now, regardless of why, the reality is I was right. Right? Like, before we get into any, I said it the next day, I don't believe it, and I was right. So here's what Joe said about how people in the Titans would view my opinion.
If you ran Jared's logic through anyone in that building who knows what happened, they'd just be like, what's wrong with that kid?
Oh, okay. So you run Jared's logic through anybody in the building, the people that were saying that weren't telling the truth, who ultimately fired the coach, and they'd say, well, I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes. The people that I am arguing didn't tell the truth would say that I don't know what I'm talking about when I am the one who is telling the truth. The second was Joe gets mad about the Mike Mularkey, Mike Vrabel comparison. Remember, they said that Mike Mularkey was coming back as coach, and then they fired him. And then they said that Mike Vrabel was coming back as coach, and then they fired him. So here's what Joe said.
But his logic is essentially because the Titans lied about Mularkey, and again, I don't even know that it was really lying, but it was certainly, John Robinson wanted Mularkey out. Amy Adams Strunk puts a statement out, Mike's our coach, and they fire him after the loss. So that's true. That did happen. So Jared's logic is because that happened, this whole situation with Vrabel was also a lie. So everything's a lie.
Again, if you lie about something one time, am I supposed to believe you 100% the next time? Am I wrong for this? If you got cheated on by a partner, and then you saw that partner do the exact same thing before, and they said, I promise I'm not cheating, would you really believe them? I wouldn't. So I think the comparison is apt. Third, this is the thing Joe he can't handle. He cannot handle the idea that somebody might tell him or his colleagues something that is not true. So if it's reported in The Athletic, whether it's Dan Pompei's Derrick Henry trade that Rand said didn't happen, whether it's Diana saying Vrabel's not getting fired when he did get fired, or their explanation for why they fired Vrabel, it must be true if it runs in his publication. Here's his breakdown.
This story, I believe like 15, 16 different people were talked to for this story, okay? Some of them not quoted. I think a dozen were used as sources in the story. And, these things are still, in some of these things, it's what someone said. So it doesn't mean people can't lie, right? But that's why you cross-reference things and you talk to as many people as you can. And I'm confident in the accuracy of this report. Let's review what happened, okay? First of all, here's a graph from the story. Quote, the Titans considered moving on from Vrabel after last season for a fresh start, according to a team source, but Strunk still believed Vrabel was a great coach and worth keeping. When Carthon was close to getting the GM job, Vrabel told Strunk he liked Carthon but didn't feel he was ready to become an NFL general manager. Vrabel's suggestion, the Titans hire Carthon as assistant GM, a promotion from his position as number 3 at the Niners. Strunk did not take kindly to this suggestion, and team sources believe her and Vrabel's relationship took a hit as a result of that conversation. That's an important point. I think that's one of the most important points of the whole thing, okay? Then we have Foxborough, the nothing burger. Quote, high-level Titan sources told The Athletic in November that the team's long-term plan was to retain Vrabel as coach. After Vrabel's firing, a team source said that was true then because Strunk strongly believed in Vrabel at the time and because she wanted Vrabel to have a clear understanding of how she felt about him and how badly she wanted him to be the coach for years to come. Strunk did not get the sense that Vrabel felt the same way, and the communication between them got worse from there.
Okay. So Joe says that after the season, the 22 season, when they fired John Robinson, Amy Adams Strunk considered firing Vrabel then. We're going to start over. That's the first thing. So she thought about firing him after the season. Then when she hired Rand Carthon, decided not to do it, he said he should be assistant general manager. That pissed her off. She thought about firing him then. So she thought about firing him after the season. She thought about firing him before the season. But then all of a sudden, around Thanksgiving, when the team sucks, she now all of a sudden is not considering firing him. And then Joe said that she even thought about, we talk about the 6 weeks from Thanksgiving to the end of the season. She thought about firing him before that.
Another point to make, by the way, Jared made this, 6 weeks later. Look, this was festering over time. This festered through the whole season. The New England thing was a big deal for her. How it wasn't discussed was a big deal for her, clearly, okay? Also, she was resolved to fire Mike Vrabel before it got to the end of the season. That's another thing in the story. I mean, it unraveled quickly, kind of, but if you considered moving on from him before, you can kind of track it all, right? I think it all makes sense.
By the way,
what doesn't make sense is I'm going to put this out there, but I'm lying.
Okay, so The Athletic is reporting that she considered firing him after the 2022 season. Ian, just correct me on all this in case I'm wrong. The Athletic reported according to Joe, that they considered firing Vrabel after 2022, but Amy decided not to, right?
I'm having trouble keeping all my years in order after which seasons, to be
Okay, so
honest with you.
22 is the Robinson season before Carthon got fired,
Uh-huh.
before Carthon got hired. So she thought about firing him then. Then she got mad at him, and their relationship, quote unquote, deteriorated, according to Joe, because he thought Rand Carthon should be the assistant general manager, not the general manager. But then it was so good at Thanksgiving, even though the team sucked, it was so good at Thanksgiving that they believed in Vrabel as the coach, and they wanted him to know it. And they wanted to put the speculation to bed. Then we know for a fact that she did an abrupt 180 and that she fired him at the end of the year. So where she was on Thanksgiving and where she was at the end of the year weren't the same. That we know. That's obvious if that's the case. But then he says she even thought about firing him before that. So between Thanksgiving and the end of the season, she was so strong in her conviction from Thanksgiving that 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, she decided she wanted to fire him. So if you were to take a chart of all the times she's thought about firing him, it would basically be at the January of 23, later in January of 23, then not fire in November of 23, and then want to fire again in December of 23 and January of 24. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that she just one of those games just flipped a switch and she just decided, nah, I think I should fire him? Of course not.
Feels that way with the John Robinson firing.
Again, that might be totally different. I mean, people think that's the A.J. Brown thing. I don't think it's the A.J. Brown thing, but I haven't gotten to the bottom of that. That I'm not worried about. Take that to the side. I'm worried about the Vrabel thing because, again, they're reporting. Here's, again, the big picture I have. If The Athletic reports it, Joe thinks it has to be true. That everything that everybody says to him must be true. And I get it. You don't want to feel like you're getting lied to. I understand. But reporters get it wrong. And what I laughed about the most was as soon as they finished that Rex rant, it was like, okay, Charles Robinson, our insider who knows it all, he's going to join us next. And all I could think of was something that I actually found in the sound bites yesterday that Charles Robinson said in November of last year.
I'm telling you, I think you start the conversation with at least 2 first-round picks on the table. I think that's how valuable Mike Vrabel is. He's a guy I think a lot of teams would consider, firing their current head coaches for.
Oh, yeah. So let's go to that expert because he knows, right? Jared, he's so stupid. He said when we reported that we weren't firing Vrabel, he said he didn't believe it. They fired Vrabel. He's so stupid. Now let's go to the guy who in November said 2 first-round picks for Mike Vrabel. I rest my case. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios. First Horizon Park, where the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight at 6:35. Plenty of great seats available. And I hear there are also plenty of great seats available for what I think is going to be pretty exciting, which is Home Run Derby X, Saturday, August 31st, right here at First Horizon Park. Tons of great big league stars of the past, including Nick Swisher, World Series champion, joining us here at First Horizon Park. First of all, thanks for stopping by. And I know you are excited about Home Run Derby.
Oh, bro, I'm juiced, and I appreciate the intro. Thanks for having me, man.
Sure.
It's a blast being here over at First Horizon. It's my first time being here at the ballpark here in Nashville.
Is it your first time in Nashville?
No. After the whole move when COVID hit, I had a bunch of my friends that live here now, so I've been able to spend a little bit of time on Broadway, which, I mean, who hasn't? But I think just for myself, this Home Run Derby X thing came up about 3 years ago, and we've been putting on home run derbies internationally as well as domestically for the last 3 years. And so I think this year we're really, really excited to come to Nashville, not only because it's a baseball town, but because I'm bringing some amazing players along with me this year. Andrew Jones, Manny Ramirez, Pedro Alvarez, who went to school right down the street at Vandy. We've got Jocelyn Allo, Alex Hugo, Mia here. Mia's in the house. And then we've got so many other players. We had an actual competition to get our four sort of local players to compete with us.
Okay.
And I got to meet those guys yesterday as well as today, which was awesome. So I think just for myself, just to be able to be here, talk about Home Run Derby X, get it out a little more. We're really excited about the opportunity.
Okay, I'll ask you more about like the format of all that. But why Nashville? Like, what was it about Nashville? Because this is the first when they announced that Home Run Derby X was going to be here at First Horizon Park. I mean, anything that says like Manny Ramirez is coming to First Horizon Park. I mean, they're like, it'd be one thing if this was like a AAA rehab assignment or whatever. But I mean, that kind of got my attention in the email inbox. And then again, Andrew Jones and you and Pedro Alvarez. So why Nashville for this, and why do you think it will be successful in Nashville?
Well, I think just in general, you got to remember, this wasn't just a Nashville thing. This was vetted out to hundreds of minor league teams. And Nashville was one of the final chosen spots, only because there's a lot of different things that we look for. Obviously, we look for attendance. This place has led the league in attendance over the last few years. Mm-hmm. We look for a baseball area. This is a baseball area. We like AAA parks because they're a little bigger than most other parks. This is a AAA park that has that. We look for some sort of similarities and some sort of things that they have in the outfield. Like over here, underneath the scoreboard right here, you have like an adult playground out there, which is going to be where we're hitting all of our home runs. Because in Home Run Derby X, you don't use the big field. We create our own field. And so for all of us, we'll be hitting right there behind second base. We'll be launching balls out into the seats over there, which is going to be amazing. We had 2 events last year, which we sold out, which were amazing. We have 4 events this year, which we're hoping to sell out as well. And then hopefully move this thing to the All-Star game.
I mean, what I get excited about with Nashville and baseball is you're sitting here talking about, we chose Nashville and it's a great baseball area. And you talked about the attendance for AAA. And I think that the attendance for AAA baseball here is different than, say, like if we were to have a major league team.
Sure.
I think the reason why it's so successful here is because it's an accessible ballpark. I think that there's something to do for everybody. If you're a kid, they have all the kid stuff over there. Again, you brought up the bars and stuff they got in the outfield. And then again, like, there's some of the top prospects in baseball that come up through here all the time that we get to see. I mean, I remember as a kid going to see a Nashville Sounds team that was a AAA affiliate of the Brewers that had Prince Fielder and Ricky Weeks and Corey Hart,
a bunch of
Brian
ballers.
Braun.
Yeah.
So I say this because we want to have an MLB team.
Mm-hmm.
We want a team. And I keep wondering, like, why it is that we can see places. You played in Oakland. Mm-hmm. We can see places that don't draw. And we're drawing 11,000 for minor league baseball. And I'm like, why can't we get it?
I'm not. That's for you to. That's for you to figure out. I have no idea. For me being my first time here, I think one of the things that draws here is the overall infrastructure that's created around the ballpark. Mm-hmm. This is almost like a Truist Park sort of situation, right? You have your amenities and your hotels, your condos, your apartments over here, and then on this side you have all your bars. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I think most people come to this stadium is maybe not always for the baseball, but because of everything that's happening around the baseball park. And so I think that's one of the things that I noticed when I immediately got here was all the restaurants and bars. And I was like, wow, look at all the things that people could do and then have a few drinks and just mosey on over and catch a couple innings of a minor league ballpark. So I think in general, this place is great. It's my first time being here. The field felt amazing, just walking around, checking it out. And then I'm really interested to see the actual attendance that draws tonight because I've heard a lot about it, but I'm really interested to see it in firsthand.
Nick Swisher is with us. I also wonder this, which is the way the game's trending now, as far as attendance in the stadium, things like that. You know, I mean, when I was growing up, you know, there were 50 and 60,000 seat stadiums. Like you remember Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, or like the old multi-purpose stadiums that kind of sucked, but they had a ton of seats because they also had football.
Where the Florida Marlins were.
Yes, exactly. Now it's probably more in the 35 to 40 range or something like that. And yet I keep looking at this stadium because Major League Baseball wants Nashville to build them a stadium. And Nashville, you know, we're paying $2 billion for a football stadium. We already got soccer. We've got hockey. It's like, we're not going to pay $2 billion for baseball. Could we? You've played in the big leagues. Could we, in theory, play big league games here if we retrofitted, you know, added some stands out in the outfields and did something? Could we play Major League Baseball here?
I mean, sure. And I'm sure that's what we would love to have happen. I mean, obviously here in Nashville, that's all you want is professional sports teams. But at the end of the day, if I'm an owner of the Nashville Sounds, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
True.
So I'm not looking to change anything right now as long as I'm putting dollars in my pockets. That's from the business front. But at the end of the day, if it seems like the emphasis is on the football team and that $2 billion, I mean, bro, I don't know about you, but I don't have $2 billion just laying around.
No.
And I'm sure the city doesn't as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of things that go into that.
Oh, dude, I learned about revenue bonds like when it came to the stadium. So I'm from Nashville and I grew up here, and Nick Swisher's with us. And there was like a big part of me that, you know, just didn't want to be, because I grew up a big Titans fan.
Sure.
And so they're building a new stadium. Of course, I'm going to go to the new stadium.
I mean, bro, I want to go to the new stadium.
But what I didn't want to be was I didn't want to be some local homer that just got on the air and was like, hey, it's great for them to take $1.2 billion of your money and build it into a new stadium. So I wanted to make sure that I was being honest with people, and so I learned about revenue bonds and versus general obligation bonds and things like that, way above my pay grade. My theory is, with baseball in general, it is not as popular nationally as it used to be. Like when I was a kid and you played, and it was, you know, Derek Jeter and Manny Ramirez and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson and just, I mean, those guys, Mike Piazza, just superstars. It doesn't feel like the game's that popular nationally anymore, but people love their team.
No doubt.
And if we had a team here, I am convinced people would love their team.
Oh,
and I don't think that's a bad thing either with where the game's headed.
No, 100%. I think that's the reason why a lot of markets like New York, like the Yankees, you know, regardless of if you see them winning or losing, you're going to go support the New York Yankees because that's your team. It's a generational sort of team. So I think just in general, I think that's what I love most about these minor league ballparks that we're getting the opportunity to come and showcase our game at, is because it's more intimate. It's more accessible. It's not $200 for a ticket.
Sure.
And so I think that when you're going into these markets, and obviously Nashville wasn't a monster city up until about a handful of years ago.
Is that not crazy?
This place is absolutely badass. Just going around from the food to the music to the businesses that are here. It is crazy the fact that this place wasn't just like a crazy destination for most people to be at like it is now. But just seeing the overall growth of what's happened over the last 5 years here, bro, the infrastructure here it's starting to build itself back up because just like Atlanta, just like Austin, just like Florida, it just weren't set up for having that many people there. But now, I mean, look what you have here in left field. This whole building structure right here with apartments and condos wasn't here a couple years back.
Are you guys going to try to hit these windows of these brand new apartment complexes?
So we are putting our field. You see the 403 sign? The right side of the batter's eye will be our left field foul pole.
Okay, got it.
And then the right field line will be our right field foul pole. So we shrink the field. We don't use the whole field. And so most of the time it's a 90-degree field. Now we played a 60-degree field. And so we move it up. We hit off of a huge platform with LED lights and explosions and the whole nine. Because at the end of the day, bro, we're trying to showcase our skill. We're trying to entertain people.
Sure.
We're not playing a game. We're trying to entertain people, just like what the Bananas do. All we want to do is come here, have the best time ever, and they leave with a great taste in their mouth.
Home Run Derby X is August 31st right here at First Horizon Park. Tickets on sale. Go to thegamenashville.com/deals. We got great deals for those available. I want to do something that I do with another guest, but I really enjoy. It's called the hot seat. I'm going to reel through a bunch of questions.
All
for
right,
you.
bro. I'm ready
I'm going
for
to
you.
do that coming up next.
Okay, man.
Nick Swisher is with us, former MLB, former World Series champion. It says you are a special advisor to the Yankees.
Yes, sir.
What the hell's that?
Pretty much I do what I'm told. Right? At the end of the day, I report back to our general manager, Brian Cashman, our owner, Hal Steinbrenner, and our farm director who runs our entire minor league organization, Kevin Reese.
Okay, well, they need to start hitting the ball better. So send my suggestions along. Stillman and Company, we continue 102.5, 106 through the game.
Hey, good Thursday afternoon, my friends. Big Joe down here in Murfreesboro at MJ Sports Bar and Grill for the game ticket tour. We got a great crowd, and we were having a lot of fun. 1253 Northwest Broad. Stop by from now until 6 o'clock and win tickets to go see Post Malone, Sammy Hagar, Megadeth, the Beach Boys. You name it, we probably got it. Plus, enter for the Game Summer Ticket Tour grand prize. That's tickets to the Preds, the Titans, and the Sounds, plus the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. All this is brought to you by our good friends at Green River Whiskey. We love Green River Whiskey. For more information on the Game Ticket Tour, let's go to GameNashville.com. Again, Big Joe down here in the borough at MJ Sports Bar and Grill, 1253 Northwest Broad. We're here until 6 o'clock. We'll see you soon.
Stillman and Company live at First Horizon Park. We are joined by former World Series champion and now special advisor to the New York Yankees, Nick Swisher, who's going to be part of Home Run Derby X. It sounds like you're running Home Run Derby X.
You know what? I feel like I've been very blessed. I was brought into this project extremely early. Myself, Kellum Salter, and Charlie Hill on the Major League Baseball side. And they've just trusted me to try and make this, project better. It's been great to be able to reach out to ex-players.
So were you the one that recruited Manny and recruited Andrew Jones and recruited the guys that are going to be here first?
We have a unique way of going about that. And usually it's maybe I might make the first call just to let them know a little more familiarity with me rather than with somebody from Major League Baseball. And at the end of the day, it's great to see these guys that want to help and want to be part of this. I mean, Manny's like, bro, I'm ready. I want to compete in every one of them. And as much as I'd love to see Manny Ramirez compete in every single one we have this year, which we do. We have 4 events this year, which is going to be amazing. We'll start off in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We'll go to Albuquerque. We come here to Nashville, and we finish in Durham.
Is Manny still fit, or is he kind of?
Because all you got to do is check his Instagram feed, bro, and you'll see.
Oh, he's still okay.
That's the first thing I asked him. I said, Manny, can you still hit? He said, Poppy, I hit every day. I said, all right, baby. Then you're my guy. You're who I need.
All right. So I'm going to roll through a bunch of questions with you right here. And then, Ian, do we have like a bell or something you want to give us to move on to the next? All right. So, number one, you played in Oakland.
Yeah.
You played in New York.
Yeah.
What was the biggest, oh my God, I'm not in Oakland anymore moment for you in New York?
First day of spring training, bro, rolled into the locker room before everybody got there. And all I had to do was just look at the names on the lockers. And it was like, what am I doing here? Am I supposed to be here? The A-Rods, the Derek Jeters, the Mariano Rivera's, the Andy Pettitts, the Jorge Posadas, the Robbie Cano's, the Johnny Damons.
By the way, you were a pretty good player, but no, I'm not sure you do fit with all those names that you just thrown out.
Exactly. So I think for myself, just kind of rolling in there and just being like, wow, it was a real kind of a wake up moment right there of like, wow, I am around a bunch of pros. And I learned so much in my 4 years over in New York. It was awesome.
Okay. Number two, who out of like the big time baseball star player that went, who was the nicest, most down to earth dude in your experience?
Oh man. I mean, bro, I could list you off and
I'm talking about big time. Like, don't give me Doug Brocail. Like, give me like
I can give you Sean Casey, right?
Okay,
the mayor,
all right.
I can give you Frank Thomas.
Frank Thomas, good dude.
Frank Thomas is the man. Jason Kendall, Mark Kotze. I mean, bro, I'm trying to think. Eric Chavez. I'm trying to think of like all the guys that were.
I'm talking about like the like Jeter and Cal Ripken, and I know Cal was reporting.
Those guys are great dudes.
But like, who's like the great? Like the dude's like, dude, this guy will give you the shirt.
Andy Pettit.
Really?
Oh yeah. Hands down.
Even though he used steroids?
I mean, sure. According to you, sure.
I feel like he and Big Papi got the pass on the steroid thing because they kind of put their hand up and said like, hey, like we did it.
Well, what about Jason Jalby? One of the nicest human beings you can meet too.
Did he put his hand up and say
they messed up? They took it on the chin and then they moved forward, which is exactly what you should do.
Whereas I think people got mad at Clemens and Bonds and those guys because they just denied. It's like Bill Clinton. Like, I don't know how many people really care about like, what happened with Monica Lewinsky, whatever, but he lied about it. And I think people were more mad that he lied than it was what he did. And I think steroids the same way. If dude puts his hand up and say, hey, I did it, like it'll be like,
but also too, you got to remember the guys that you say got the pass are also great individuals and really nice and treated people the right way. So, I mean, how would you not want to would you want to root for those guys?
Okay. That takes me to the next one. What are your thoughts on Barry Bonds?
He's the man, one of the greatest hitters in the game. You can say whatever you want about the steroid stuff, still got to put the barrel on it. He was winning MVPs before all that stuff, and he was winning post. So at the end of the day, in my mind, one of the greatest hitters we've ever seen.
Post. He never played post. Once he hit the home run to pass Hank Aaron, he was never seen or heard from again until he became a hitting coach for the Marlins, and he was like 75 pounds less.
I mean, hey, bro, I'm a little less right now than when I played.
What'd you play at?
220.
What are you right now?
210.
Really? Good for you. But not 70 pounds. His head's smaller now than it was then.
Hey, man. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want to say about anything that happened off the field, but on the field, bro, when that man stepped in the batter's box, you stopped everything you were doing to watch him hit.
How much, and I'm sure it's an honor to win a World Series no matter what, how much of an honor was it to do it as a game?
The best. There's no better place to win than New York City.
Like
nobody celebrates their players the way that New York does.
So like we know that like New York is kind of the mecca of the, it's the number one market in the country. But when you win in New York, what is it like? Like what is being the rest of October, all of November, like when you won the championship as a New York Yankee, like what is so special about like going out and the opportunities that come your way and the people you get to meet?
Yeah,
What
but
is that?
all that stuff happens kind of before as well, right? If you get to New York and you make a name for yourself, all that stuff happens before. So the restaurants and meeting people, like people were coming in the locker room every day. So that wasn't really a monster thing. It wasn't a monster change for all of us. So I think just in general, the fact that we were able to win in that market, nobody celebrates their stars like they do in New York.
How did you celebrate winning a World Series?
Oh, bro. I mean, dude, I felt like I took a week off and got back to work. I mean, like I wanted to do it again. I feel like that's the thing, man. If you grow up and you have Derek Jeter as your leader, bro, you don't celebrate for too long. You get right back at it because you're supposed to win. And you're a New York Yankee, you're supposed to win championships. So that's why we trained like that.
So when it came to your relationship with Jeter, when you played with him, obviously, I know you say he seems like a great dude, but what was his level of, being there for you and also his level of holding everybody accountable?
10 out of 10 on both.
Like you felt like, was there like a sensitive side to him? Was there like a hard ass side to him? Was he one or the other? Like,
I think he was pretty much the same guy every single day. And
Really?
I think he's continued to do that his whole career. Any interview you've ever seen, bro, I think you would know that. For somebody that watches baseball, knows the game, I'd like to think that you would know that he's exactly the same now as he was when he played.
So here's my sense with all these guys who win. And it's that these guys don't really worry about the having won. They worry more about like what it is, like if there's a 15-step process to win. And really there's like a 250-step process. But if there's a 15-step process to win, these guys are worried about each step along the way. Like it's like, hey, I need to go to bed early this time because I want to wake up tomorrow because I'm not going to drink tonight because I don't want to drink at all because I don't want to tomorrow for my workout.
Yep, and I'm going to
Because
wake up
my
at 7
workout's,
a.m. I'm going to have my breakfast and I'm going to go back to sleep till 9:30. Every day he did that.
I think every single one of those dudes, whether it's him, Jordan, Tom Brady, whatever, I think that they live an incredibly fleeting life in terms of happiness because it's their, like, they don't care about what they did. They don't care about people telling them they're great or whatever. It's all about fearing of the next failure. And like, that is a horrible way to live, except that's what it takes to win championships.
I mean, I don't know about that, bro. I'd like to think he's probably pretty happy in his life right now with his
Now,
beautiful wife
but
and family.
when he played, I bet it was never worried about what happened in the past. And it's always,
Bro, I didn't win 5 championships, and I'm not worried about what happened in the past. So I'm thinking to myself, like, well, if Derek Jeter's living his life like that, then I kind of live my life like that too. Like, I don't worry about what happened yesterday. Like, I don't look at my jerseys hanging on the wall in my house and like, whoa, I played 13 years in the big leagues. Like, I don't do that. Like, I look forward to what's next. Like, what's happening next in your life? What am I going to conquer next? How am I going to get better at something else in life? Like, I'm 44 years young, bro. Like, I'm just getting moving.
you look like you're still playing.
That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, like, because it's a lifestyle. Like, I wake up in the morning, I kick today's ass, and then I wake up tomorrow and I try and do the same thing.
Nick Swisher is with us here on the program again. Home Run Derby X coming August 31st, Saturday, right here to First Horizon Park. Him, Manny Ramirez, Andrew Jones, Pedro Alvarez, and others. I do wonder this when it comes to like Major League Baseball, where this is headed, what do we have to do to get the game back to where it was when you played with?
Oh, bro, you dreaming. It's never going to be like that. The
Why?
toothpaste is out the tube, bro. Analytics are out the tube.
So you think it's the nerds that have ruined the game?
I love the nerds. You call them nerds. I call it information. Like, you got to remember, bro, like I need that information. If I want to move forward in this game, I need all the information I get so I can make the best decisions possible for any player or organization moving forward. So, like, I don't call them nerds. I call them colleagues. I call them additions. I call them fountains.
You're a positive guy.
Well, at the end of the day, I need those people because I can't do what they do and they can't do what I do. So at the end of the day, you need a great combination of those. I mean, you look at the last 4 or 5 World Series champions, bro. If you think the nerds are running that, I think you're out of your mind.
So when you say the toothpaste is out of the tube, then what are you referring to?
Talking about analytics and numbers and how you can't get away from numbers. Cold, hard numbers are cold, hard numbers. If you struggle against this guy over 50 at-bats, I'm not playing you against that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big enough of a test for me to know that you're not going to be successful against this guy. So at the end of the day, like, I think you would be an idiot not to look at all those numbers and not to get all the information you could so you can make the most logical decision possible.
So we can't have it the way that we used to have it in 2002.
But that's how you want it. That's how you want it.
That's how I want it.
Okay, well, that's not how I want it.
Like the move, I was in the Bahamas last week, and like when the sun goes down, watch movies and then go to bed. And the movie Fever pitch was
sure.
And of course, that's where Jimmy Fallon, and the Red Sox won the World Series in 2004. And I'm trying to explain it. That what it was like for people that weren't following baseball I was trying to explain what it was like in 2004.
Okay,
like that Red Sox, Yankees.
Let me put this on there. Even if you had any team down 3-0 to any other team, it doesn't matter.
We saw it in hockey where they almost came back.
There's
and everybody
no number that somebody's going to give you to change that around. That's an attitude. And that's exactly why the Red Sox won. They would do the exact same thing in today's game if they had the same players.
But I'm just talking about like the focus, the excitement, the national TV exposure. I turn on SportsCenter, I'm like, where's the baseball highlights?
Well, yeah, because there's 500 different platforms to watch baseball now.
And I hate that, by the way.
I love it.
I liked cable TV when it was click and click and click, and I had it. And
you're one of them guys that you want to turn the knob to get your station.
Hey, smack the TV a little bit. All right, Nick Swisher with us. Last one of this, and then we'll talk some more about Home Run Derby X. This is a two-parter. Hardest pitcher to hit in your career.
Yep.
And the really good pitcher that you could square up every time.
So I didn't square him up every time, but I hit a lot of home runs off him. King Felix.
Really?
Felix Hernandez. I think I hit 5 or 6 home runs off him, which is pretty good, but I'm sure he punched me out 15, 20 times, I'm sure. And then probably the hardest pitcher that I ever faced that just got me all the time was number one. Remember John Lackey?
Yeah.
John Lackey pitched for a long time, man. I caught him early with the Angels and late with Boston. And Francisco Rodriguez. Remember K-Rod?
K-Rod, yeah.
Bro, back in the day when there was no strike zone when you were watching the game on TV, and umpires used to just if you were a rookie, bro, the plate was all of a sudden 25 inches instead of 17. So at the end of the day, trying to protect all that with the umpires that were there for 40 years before me, and I was a rookie, bro, trying to face K-Rod, it was impossible. So those two guys, John Lackey and K-Rod, man.
John Lackey's not a name a lot of people will pull out. I covered John Lackey like my first year in the business. I was in New England and he was pitching for the Red Sox. He was a really, really nice dude.
He's a great guy.
That was one thing that I
and not only he's a monster. He's huge.
Well, so he had lost a lot of weight. Like when I was there, and I was actually kind of stunned how like skinny he looked because the camera adds 10 pounds plus he lost like 50.
Sure.
So you were talking about like 60 pounds less of what I'm used to seeing on TV.
Yep.
So I was a little surprised by that, but I just thought he was an unbelievably great guy. And I do remember. Like when you guys won the World Series in 2009, the Angels were the team that you guys played in the ALCS.
In the LCS, yeah.
And he was nasty.
Oh,
I mean, that was
gross.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's what baseball used to be. Maybe it was just me. I don't know. That's what it felt like. Even if I was a Braves fan and they were always good when I was growing up, but even when the Braves weren't in, it still felt like a battle of the Titans back in the day.
Sure.
And now it just kind of feels like
I think nowadays there's so much money that's going around and kind of capped off and the luxury tax and the whole nine. Now you're seeing star players all over the league, not all just on one team. Like I'm trying to think like you battle the Titans. I mean, like, the Yankees versus the Angels back in the day. I mean, that was a star-studded event. I mean, that was a just amazing teams. So I think just in general, yeah, maybe things are a little different, but change is good. And I think that, listen, at the end of the day, maybe we're valuing things that some people may not think are right, like valuing home runs and slugging percentage and things like that. But at the end of the day, like that's what the business pays. So if that's what the business pays, that's what the young player is going to try and do. And right now you pay for homers. And that's exactly what players are trying to do right now.
Nick Swisher with us, Home Run Derby X right here, Saturday, August 31st. So you still got tons of time to plan out your Saturdays in August to be here for Home Run Derby X. You, Manny Ramirez, Pedro Alvarez, Andrew Jones.
Yeah.
By the way, you think he gets in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, he should. He should. Absolutely, man. I got to play with AJ with New York for a couple years, which was awesome. And not only that, I've just developed a great relationship with him, even post-career, which is even better. Just the fact that I'm like sitting around, like rubbing shoulders with these dudes on an everyday base is just absolutely amazing for me.
Why can't you get Jeter into Home Run Derby X?
Well, I don't know if Home Run Derby X is his thing, but at the end of the day,
I just want to bust your chops on that. So,
I mean, if we did like, best bat to ball skills. I mean, I don't know. I always used to say to Derek all the time, man, I'm like, man, this guy could hit for homers. In batting practice, you should see him launch balls. Bro, he could absolutely just mash baseballs in batting
The
practice.
guy I was told that could have absolutely been a home run hitter if they wanted to be, but wasn't, was Ichiro.
Oh, bro, I played with him too. From the first pitch of batting practice to the last pitch of batting practice, he's rifling balls into the second deck, right field. And then he gets in the game and just starts filleting balls to left field. Now, I asked Derek the same thing. I said, why don't you hit more power? Why don't you hit more homers? And he said, I knew a long time ago, Swish, I wasn't going to catch Hank Aaron, but I had the chance to catch Pete. And that was his mentality. He said, I'd rather go out there and have 5 hits than go out there and hit 1 home run. And so that was his mentality. And that's why that guy was a winner, because he knew exactly what he was doing. There was no guesswork in his job. He knew exactly the type of player he was, and that's why he was as successful. And that's why he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, should have been unanimous decision, like the whole 9, because not only that, he was an amazing leader on top of all that.
How cool was it in New York City when you won and everybody recognized you everywhere you went and all that?
It's great. Pretty cool. It's awesome.
Nick Swisher, thanks for stopping by. Again, Home Run Derby X right here, First Horizon Park, Saturday, August 31st.
August 31st, baby. Let's
And
get it.
I am going to make a promise on your behalf. It sounds like it's going to be a great time.
It's going to be amazing. I can promise you it will be a night that you will not forget. I heard the Bananas were just here a little bit ago.
So I was there one of the days they were here, and I mean, there wasn't a single seat unopened.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Well, I think it's also, too, a lot of people know about the Bananas. They don't
Sure.
really know about Home Run Derby X yet. So we're doing our best to try and get the word out. We got to be a little better on socials. Major League Baseball is doing a great job of giving us a great runway. We've got 4 amazing cities we're going to this year. We're hoping to have 10 plus events next year as well. And then one of these days, we're going to get this thing in the All-Star game.
And then people will be betting on it.
Sound like a plan to me?
Nick Swisher. Nick, thanks for stopping by.
All right, brother.
And thanks for coming to Nashville and everything else. We really appreciate it.
You got it, baby.
We roll along. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company live out at First Horizon Park. I want to thank Nick Swisher. Again, I mean, I remember dude played when I was a kid and then won a World Series when I was in college. And honestly, looks the exact same as he looked when he played. And that's going to be part of Home Run Derby X right here. Manny Ramirez, Andrew Jones, Pedro Alvarez, more. It's a 3-on-3 Home Run Derby contest on August 31st on a Saturday. So it should be very, very exciting. The Sounds again are getting ready to take on the Sounds are getting ready to take on Charlotte. And so it's a good time to be had by all. Again, go to theGameNashville.com/deals. We've got deals on Home Run Derby X tickets. So again, be excited about that. A lot of people want to weigh in on me driving Joe Rex Road crazy. And a lot of people want to weigh in on Nick Swisher. So we'll get to that. And we will do that with your phones, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next. Plus, with what my biggest takeaway, Brian Callahan today was talking about the quarterback and where they're, was answering questions after practice. And there's one thing that I can't shake. And as a Titan fan, it's hard for me not to get excited. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 The Game.
I think Will's doing a great job playing on time. Obviously we're again focused on a little bit more of the timing elements, the shorter passing game. He's been really impressive. I think his hard work this offseason and over the summer has really paid off. He's incredibly confident right now, and he's earned that confidence. And every day that he comes out and plays well, he earns more confidence. And I think that's the fun part about where he's at. He's dialed in. He has studied. You can just tell he's ready for what's ahead. And I think I told him yesterday, if he keeps stacking days like he had yesterday and today, he's gonna play pretty good football. And it's a day by day process, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But I've been really pleased with where he's at.
That was Brian Callahan today, and boy, that just seemed like effusive praise for the quarterback in Will Levis. Now, let me just state for the record, and I think you guys know this, but in case you don't, I want to be fully transparent here. I am not somebody who just listens to whatever the coach says and assumes it's gospel. Unlike maybe some people on our radio station that if a coach tells them something on background or, an unnamed source and they write it in their publication, The Athletic, that they just, oh no, this must be the truth. I am not like that. You know that. I know that these guys get up at these podiums and they lie. Not all the time, but they do. So it's not like I'm going to say, well, Brian Callahan said all these positive things about Will Levis, about his work ethic, about the first 2 days of practice, about the way he's gone about his business. And so it must be true. And he's going to be Dan Marino. Again, I see two outcomes for Will Levis, and I think they are equally possible. I think there is the Dan Marino possibility. I think there is the Blake Bortles possibility. Big guy, big arm, couldn't throw it where it was supposed to go, couldn't put the timing in. And while he could put up a bunch of stats on bad teams, he's really kind of a backup. And then there's Dan Marino, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I can see it. Now, it'll probably end up somewhere in the middle, but I'm just saying I can see that kind of potential with Levis. But so far, through the first 7 months that Brian Callahan has been the Titans coach, he hasn't given me any reason not to believe him. He hasn't given me any reason to question when he gets up there. Now, he pumps a lot of sunshine. He's a positive guy. But he doesn't give me any reason to make me think that he's lied to me. And because of that, I have to think that this is what he is really seeing. That he is seeing the hard work that Will Levis has put in the offseason, that he is seeing the hard work that he put in when they left after the OTAs and he went out to Cabo and he, went and had those practices at Vanderbilt, and that he saw all of that, and not the, hey man, I'm so glad you tried A for effort, but he is really taking steps in the right direction. I really, truly feel that that's what's happening, because he hasn't given me any reason to think that he's not telling the truth, and his credentials tell me that he is capable of being able to judge that. I am a big believer in what the experts say. Now, I'm not talking about people like me when I say experts. I'm not an expert. I will tell you this right now. Now, there are some things that I could be an expert on. Mike Vrabel and the Vrabelese and the telling the truth or what he's going to do or what he's butthurt about or whatever, I could be an expert on that, in a trial. I could be an expert witness. But if you were to sit there and take the offensive line and go through technique, I can't tell you what they're doing. I'm not Bill Callahan. Well, Brian Callahan, as of right now, he's a qualified expert. I mean, when it comes to picking a head coach, and there's a name out there like Bill Belichick, most people, if you said Bill Belichick or Brian Callahan, would say Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick, he's won 6 Super Bowls. He's the greatest coach ever lived, maybe. But I'd rather have Brian Callahan as the coach of the Titans. Remember all these names that were, I love Pete Carroll. I think Pete still has some juice in the tank, even though he's older. But I'd rather have Brian Callahan, because where the game is headed today, it's headed to what I call the guru coach. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Mike McDaniel in Miami, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. These guys just keep winning and winning. Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. And so while Brian Callahan's never called a play before, Brian Callahan's never been a head coach before, he is qualified with where the game is going to be the guru coach who takes over the next team with the next young quarterback. And to me, that makes him an expert. And so if I were to go see an expert because there was something wrong with my hand, and I went to an orthopedic doctor, I would trust what he would have to say. Now, if this orthopedic doctor has operated on people I know and done poorly, then I would roll my eyes and probably wouldn't go see that doctor. But as of right now, I'm assuming he's an expert. When it comes to Brian Callahan, he is an expert as of right now. Now, if he gets out there and he can't coach a lick, if he's the one guy from this tree that cannot coach, I don't really count Nathaniel Hackett as from this tree. If he's the one guy that can't coach, then next year, if he gets up there and says these things about Carson Beck or Shedeur Sanders or whoever, then I'll just kind of roll my eyes. But the entire story of this season, really where the franchise sits right now, is whether or not this young quarterback is going to pan out. That's the discussion. Is he going to be a star? Is he not going to? I don't know. But when I hear the excitement with which Brian Callahan talks about his young quarterback, when he is a quarterback expert, that gets me excited. I could go out there to practice every day, watch every rep. I don't know what the play was supposed to be. I don't know what they talked about in the meetings about what they wanted the quarterback to do. I don't know what drills they have worked on before that have led up to that moment of what they're really trying to get him to do. And I can give you an assessment, but I'm not an expert. He's an expert. And when Brian Callahan gets out there and he says things like, if he stacks days like this, these first two, he's going to be a pretty good quarterback, that gets me excited. Because at the end of the day, what this is really about is it's really about the fact that as a Titans fan, and Steve McNair was great, but I've never been able to have the comfort with my team of having that guy. Kansas City fans have that guy. New England fans for 20 years had that guy. Now they're lost just like all the rest of us. I have no idea if Levis is going to be the guy, but I hope and pray that he is. When I see these quarterbacks sign for this unbelievable amount of money, I'm like, I hope that's my team that gets to write a quarterback a $300 million check. I hope. So when Brian Callahan gets up there after 2 days of camp and says the first 2 days have been so impressive that he is so enamored with the quarterback, it gets me excited. By the way, Matt says in the YouTube chat, when talking about me driving Joe Rexrode crazy, and I mean legitimately crazy. Ian, how many texts did Joe send to you and I when I went over the fact that
A couple.
I think I counted it up to be around 7. That's what he sent me and Ian. He sent me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 18 text messages in one segment from Joe Rexrode. And Matt says, can we move on from this? Joe is ready to move on. Why can't you? 18 text messages would lead me to disagree that he's ready to move on. I'm just saying. And I rest my case. That's it for us. We are out of here. Stillman and Company. We will see everybody tomorrow at 2 for a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Again, thanks to the sounds. Thanks to Nick Swisher. Home Run Derby X right here at First Horizon Park on Saturday, August 31st. Manny Ramirez, Nick Swisher, Pedro Alvarez, Andrew Jones. They'll all be out here. A good time will be had by all. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.